greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Although there were many fleets here, almost all of them needed talents. Not ordinary people. This was normal, talents were scarce, but ordinary people were abundant. However, Gu Qijue's answer surprised everyone. I am Gu Qijue, the head of the Infinite Empire. The Infinite Empire is a quasi-star system level force in the desolate star system. Resources there are not abundant. And intelligent life is very scarce. If you are willing to go to the Infinite Empire and abide by its laws, then any of you can orderly board my starship. After Gu Qijue finished speaking, everyone was stunned. They never expected there to be a place like the desolate star system. Their homes had been almost completely destroyed by the previous star cluster level war. At this point, they only sought a space where they could live in peace. They didn't care about anything else. Soon, the news that Gu Qijue was willing to accept ordinary refugees spread throughout the area. A large number of refugees began to find ways to come to this place. Their ashen eyes once again glowed with a glimmer of hope. Not far from here, there was a planet called Green Pearl. Although Green Pearl Star was green, there were no plants or native creatures on this planet. On Green Pearl Star, there were large quantities of highly radioactive, or the purpose of these ore was unknown, and they were very dangerous. So no one was interested in Green Pearl Star. Some people with nothing better to do tried to destroy Green Pearl Star using a focused planet-destroying cannon. But this planet was very resilient, even after being bombarded by the focused planet-destroying cannon. It didn't suffer much damage. Of course, no one would create it. Green Pearl Star was not a natural planet but an artificial one. Inside Green Pearl Star was one of Ling Mi's strongholds. In this stronghold, there was not only the half-dead Ling Mi, but also the severely injured Xuanya. Ling Mi was the chief scientist in the spatial technology domain of the Tianyuan Star Cluster civilization. Xuanya was the chief scientist in the weapons domain of the Tianyuan Star Cluster civilization. These two women were once irreconcilable enemies, but when civilization was destroyed, they could only share weal and woe. In front of Xuanya was a virtual screen. This virtual screen displayed surveillance footage of the edge of the Tianyuan Star Cluster civilization. After watching for a moment, Xuanya couldn't help but let out a soft exclamation. Ling Mi glanced at her and asked, "What happened?" Xuanya pointed to the virtual screen and said, "Someone from the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster is accepting ordinary refugees." "Oh," Ling Mi casually responded, but she quickly realized something was wrong. "You said someone is accepting ordinary refugees?" Xuanya nodded with certainty. "Many ordinary refugees have already boarded his starship. There's no information about this person in the database, only that he's from the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster. What do you think he's accepting ordinary refugees for?" Ling Mi didn't answer the question but said, "I'll have our people outside investigate to see what his background is." Ling Mi and Xuanya both had subordinates operating in the outside world. However, these subordinates didn't know where Ling Mi and Xuanya were exactly. After Ling Mi gave the order, her subordinates operating outside immediately went to investigate. The investigation results quickly came out. After Ling Mi received the investigation results, she could answer Xuanya's previous question. This person is named Gu Qijue, the head of the Infinite Empire in the desolate star system of the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster. The desolate star system is a star system severely lacking intelligent life, which is why he's accepting refugees. Should we also disguise ourselves as refugees and go take a look? Xuanya immediately nodded. I suspect his motives are impure. We'll follow him and see if he has other intentions. We'll find an opportunity to deal with him. If he's truly as he says, then we'll find a way to recover our injuries in the desolate star system. Continuing to hide here is not a long-term solution. If we're found by those 4-star cluster-level civilizations, we probably won't be able to escape this time. After hearing Xuanya, Ling Mi could only nod in agreement. Immediately, the two began to disguise themselves. After preparing, they entered a spatial teleportation-like gate. The next moment, the two appeared inside a damaged civilian aircraft. It seemed they were just ordinary refugees. Of the 11 starships Gu Qijue brought, all except the flagship were full. However, seeing that there were still quite a few refugees left, he immediately decided to use the flagship to transport a portion of the refugees back. Xuanya and Ling Mi, mixed among the refugees, naturally seized the opportunity to board Gu Qijue's flagship. After everyone had boarded the flagship, the massive fleet began to ascend. These behemoths quickly penetrated the planet's thin atmosphere and entered space. Gu Qijue's voice was also transmitted to all starships throughout the fleet. Everyone, We are about to head to the Infinite Empire. Upon arrival at the Infinite Empire, you will be my subjects. Regarding information about the Infinite Empire and the desolate star system, you can use the intelligent devices on the starships to inquire. During the starship's flight, if anyone encounters a special situation, they can seek help from the surrounding mechanical lifeforms. After speaking, he said no more. He didn't know if Ling Mi was aware of his grand gesture of accepting refugees in this place. Accepting refugees was not a very important matter to him. His true purpose was to catch big fish. Please give me some monthly votes. Brothers with memberships get one free monthly vote every month. Thank you. 217. An unexpected event occurred, a swarm of void octopuses, within a star cluster level civilization. If a war breaks out between star systems, the star cluster level civilization will mediate and arbitrate. However, if a star cluster civilization engages in war, the next level up, the superstar cluster level civilization, will not intervene. Superstar cluster level civilizations do not wish to see powerful star cluster civilizations emerge that might threaten their dominance. They are happy to see star cluster civilizations consume each other, allowing them to reap the benefits. The Vermilion Bird star cluster and the Qianqi star cluster were already locked in fierce combat. Tian Li's disappearance only intensified the war between the two sides. Many people were extremely doubtful regarding Tian Li's whereabouts. Ling Mi and Xuan were also curious about Tian Li's location. However, the two of them were not spending too much time thinking about Tian Li right now. Instead, they were considering their next course of action. Inside a cabin of the starship, Ling Mi and Xuan were communicating using mental energy. Ling Mi spoke first. It seems this dominator of the Infinite Empire isn't playing any tricks. He truly needs a large number of sentient beings to participate in construction in the star system where the Infinite Empire is located. Xuanya nodded. In that case, most of the ordinary refugees of the Tianyuan star cluster civilization will finally have a place to live. But do we also have to stay in the star system where the Infinite Empire is located? Ling Mi hesitated this time. The two of them had just read the star system introduction about the desolate star system on the starship. In their view, that place had no other advantages besides safety. That region had almost no future potential for development, but then again, what they might need most for a long time to come is a safe and stable environment. After careful consideration, Ling Mi said, "Let's go to the desolate star system to investigate first. If the desolate star system really isn't suitable, it won't be too late for us to leave then." While Ling Mi and Xuan were conversing, the Emperor's starship suddenly shook violently. Then everyone inside the starship cried out in alarm. A swarm of void octopuses. "We're surrounded, we're finished," as everyone screamed. Ling Mi and Xuan also looked towards the viewport on the starship. After just one glance, the expressions on both their faces turned extremely grim. They both knew that this time, Gu Qijue had only brought a large number of war machines and no other powerful experts. With the fleet surrounded by so many swarms of void octopuses, most people here were certainly doomed. Although Ling Mi and Xuan had means of self-preservation, they were non-combat personnel. They could only protect themselves and couldn't rescue anyone else. In the cosmic starry sky, a large number of void octopuses emitting various colored lights appeared around the starships carrying Gu Qijue and the others. When these void octopuses saw the starships, they became as excited as cats seeing canned food. Millions of void octopuses charged toward the starships at extreme speed. Although many void octopuses were blasted into fragments by the starship's various laser cannons. Still, a great number of void octopuses were rapidly approaching the fleet. The starship's laser cannons, various missiles, and CIWS all opened fire, but they could not stop these monsters. Xuanya looked at Ling Mi and asked, "What should we do? This fleet is probably finished." Ling Mi thought for a moment and said, "We should take the head of state of the Infinite Empire and leave together. He should continue to dispatch fleets to receive the refugees. As for everyone else, there is nothing we can do to help them now." Xuanya nodded, agreeing with Ling Mi's view. However, right at this moment, everyone witnessed an incredible sight, just as everyone thought they were about to die here. A figure suddenly appeared in the cosmic void realm. It was a domineering man with gray-white hair cascading like a waterfall, wearing a black dragon mystic robe, holding a blood spear, dragging a long dragon tail behind him, and with two black dragons growing out of his back. Gu Qijue appeared amidst the swarm of void octopuses, and his heaven-defying, terrifying aura was immediately displayed without reservation. Boom! Holding the blood spear, He immediately erupted with world-shaking, terrifying divine might and began slaughtering the numerous void octopuses. Swish, swish, swish! Gu Qijue charged left and right, sweeping through thousands of soldiers like rolling up a mat. The blood spear in his hand continuously stabbed out fiercely. With every stab, a bloody long rainbow pierced through heaven and earth. Bang, bang, bang! In the cosmic starry sky, void octopuses were continuously blasted into masses of flesh and blood. The mutilated limbs and severed arms of the void octopuses quickly filled the entire cosmic void realm. Inside the starship, when the refugees of the Tianyuan star cluster civilization saw this scene, the entire place fell into a deathly silence. At this moment, everyone was completely stunned. Everyone stared at Gu Qijue, dumbfounded and slack-jawed, their eyes filled with disbelief. Gu Qijue's combat power was truly terrifying. He made everyone understand the meaning of one man guarding the pass. 10,000 men cannot open it. No matter how many void octopuses attacked from all directions, they were all useless before Gu Qijue. Not only were the ordinary refugees stunned, but some elites hidden among the refugees also changed their minds. The desolate star system might be a barren land, but having such an unparalleled and powerful head of state meant there were benefits to staying there. Lingmi and Xuan had just been preparing to escape. Now, seeing Gu Qijue display his great divine might, both of their beautiful faces were filled with expressions of shock. Gu Qijue was like someone who had activated Musu mode, frantically harvesting among the swarm of void octopuses, which included many imperial rank, demigod and some god rank individuals. Don't think that these void octopuses were vulnerable before Gu Qijue. It was definitely not because the void octopus, this kind of cosmic monster, was too weak. It was because Gu Qijue's strength was too immense. No matter how many void octopuses came, approaching Gu Qijue was a dead end. Under normal circumstances, when a star fleet encounters a swarm of void octopuses, they can only fight while retreating, escaping as quickly as possible. These void octopuses weren't fools either. Their targets were usually the soft persimmons, but this time they had undoubtedly kicked a steel plate, or rather, a titanium alloy plate. They gained no benefit whatsoever, and the casualties among the void octopuses were countless. After the battle had lasted for a long time, a strange sound wave suddenly transmitted through the area. Normal sound cannot travel in a vacuum, but this sound, which contained divine power, could be transmitted in the vacuum. The massive, surging void octopuses felt as if they had received a great pardon when they heard this sound. Without any hesitation, they immediately and decisively fled. In the past, when attacking star fleets, they would sweep and crush them with overwhelming force. They would chase the sentient beings in the star fleet until they cried out for their parents. This time was different. The opponent only needed one person to come out and slaughter them completely. Gu Qijue glanced toward the depths of the universe but did not pursue them. Clearly, there were people in that area, and these people could control the swarm of void octopuses. He planned to ask Tian Li and the others about this matter after returning. 218, the Emperor flagship undergoes upgrades and modifications. The crisis, from beginning to end, completely exceeded the expectations of everyone aboard the starship. Everyone had initially thought that Gu Qijue's infinite empire was so destitute that its head of state had to personally receive refugees, meaning this infinite empire was certainly nothing special. The true situation of the infinite empire remained unclear to everyone, but everyone on the starship now knew the terrifying combat power of the head of the infinite empire. After Gu Qijue arrived at the Emperor flagship, he used the starship's broadcast system to address everyone. My citizens, just now, while our fleet was traveling in the universe void realm, we encountered void octopi. The void octopi have now all been repelled, so there is no need to worry. Once the war machines have finished cleaning up the battlefield, we will continue our journey toward the desolate star system where the infinite empire is located. Gu Qijue described the sudden incident just now in a few understated sentences. The scenes that had shocked everyone seemed to be nothing worth mentioning to Gu Qijue. This made Lingmi and Xuan start considering whether they should reveal their true identities and see if they could establish cooperation with Gu Qijue. The numerous war machines of the Infinite Group were highly efficient at clearing the battlefield. All valuable materials were quickly collected by these war machines. Once all the war machines returned to the starship, Gu Qijue led the fleet to continue their departure. Next, the fleet began wormhole jumps. Along the way, no one encountered any other unexpected incidents. While the others encountered no accidents, Gu Qijue encountered accidents, specifically two of them: the Emperor flagship, Captain's quarters, Gu Qijue had originally thought he would need to make several more trips to catch a big fish, but something he never expected happened. Inside the captain's quarters, besides Gu Qijue, there were currently two beautiful women. Gu Qijue looked at the two people in front of him and couldn't help but say, "Reintroduce yourselves. Who are you?" Lingmi and Xuenya thought that because Gu Qijue had always stayed in the desolate star system, his information was too restricted, which was why he didn't know who they were. Since Gu Qijue had made this request, the two could only reintroduce themselves. "Hello, Chief Gu, I am Lingmi, the chief scientist in the field of spatial transmission technology for the Tianyuan star cluster civilization. This is Xuenya, the chief scientist in the field of weapon manufacturing for the Tianyuan star cluster civilization." After Lingmi finished speaking, the two of them removed their disguises, revealing their true appearances. Upon seeing their true appearances, Gu Qijue completely confirmed their identities. He immediately introduced himself. "Hello, young Miss Lingmi and young Miss Xuenya. I am Gu Qijue, the head of the Infinite Empire in the desolate star system of the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster. Furthermore, I am a friend of Your Excellency Tian Li, and a partner in the Tianyuan Star Cluster Civilization Reconstruction Project." When Lingmi and Xuenya approached Gu Qijue to reveal their identities, they were worried that Gu Qijue might sell them out. They were ready to escape at any moment, but they never expected that Gu Qijue was actually one of them. Soon, they used the Emperor flagship to contact Tian Li. After conversing with Tian Li, the two of them naturally had no further doubts about Gu Qijue's identity. However, both Lingmi and Xuenya were extremely surprised by Gu Qijue's sheer audacity. The major figures of the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster and the Qianqi Star Cluster were all searching for Tian Li's whereabouts. At a time like this, Gu Qijue actually dared to hide Tian Li in his own territory. What the two didn't know was that Tian Li being in Gu Qijue's territory was nothing significant, because Tian Li had originally been snatched away by Gu Qijue right under the noses of the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster and the Qianqi Star Cluster, using the method of snatching food from a tiger's mouth. Next, after multiple spatial jumps, the fleet entered the desolate star system. Lingmi and Xuenya used their respective equipment connected to the Emperor starship to analyze and scan the outside environment. The two then confirmed that the resources in this area were indeed extremely scarce. Areas beyond the cosmic Great Rift Belt are generally like this. In a place with such severe resource scarcity, the emergence of a quasi-galaxy-level civilization is nothing short of a miracle. Before long, the Emperor flagship entered the Shenhuang continent and finally landed outside the Infinite Group headquarters. Under Gu Qijue's arrangements, Tian Li, Tian Hao, Lingmi, and Xuenya quickly met. Infinite Group floating base, Tian Li's laboratory. Gu Qijue and the group of 5 began their meeting here. Before the meeting, Gu Qijue disclosed all the information about the Infinite Empire that could be made public to Lingmi and Xuenya. With so much information, Lingmi and Xuenya obviously couldn't finish reading it all immediately, so they could only focus on the key points and quickly browse. After the two finished reading through all this information once, they immediately gained a deeper understanding of the Infinite Empire and the desolate star system. Lingmi spoke up, saying, "The Infinite Empire's biggest problem right now is the lack of energy and raw materials. Without sufficient energy and sufficient raw materials, even if the 4 of us are here, it's like a clever housewife cannot cook without rice. However, with Chief Gu's capability, this matter is easily resolved. In the universe void realm, the Infinite Empire can strive to acquire most ownerless resource planets. Furthermore, action can be taken against space pirates. Space pirates are the public enemy of all civilizations, like rats crossing the street that everyone wants to beat. The gains from striking space pirates are often very considerable." Lingmi's method was similar to the suggestion Tian Li had previously given Gu Qijue. Both of their proposals involved taking action against space pirates. However, Lingmi added one point: while taking action against space pirates, they could also participate in the competition for other resource planets. Gu Qijue had originally intended to take the high-end combat forces of the Infinite Empire out again to execute a few highly profitable ventures. But while they were talking, his communicator suddenly received a notification from the Vermilion Bird Empire. He and the others needed to immediately proceed to the Bifeng battlefield to undergo the second trial. After the 3 trials conclude, the desolate star system will be required to dispatch combat troops to the Bifeng battlefield to participate in the fighting. Gu Qijue glanced at the communicator, then spoke to Tian Li, Tian Hao, Lingmi, and Xuenya. Next, I will have my adopted son, Gu Yinling, assist you in carrying out various activities. If you have anything that needs doing, you can discuss it with my adopted son. The identities of Tian Li and the other three must remain hidden. They can only operate secretly in the shadows to carry out various activities. Dispatching Gu Yinling, who is capable of handling matters alone in terms of strength, ability, and wisdom, will clearly assist Tian Li and the other three in better developing and building the infinite empire. Before Gu Qijue left, Tian Hao proactively spoke up. Your Excellency, the head of state, now that Ling Mi and Xuan have arrived, we can perform an upgrade and modification on the Emperor flagship. We can turn the Emperor flagship into an E-rank cosmic-level warship. 219, the Bifeng battlefield. The second conscription, the E-rank cosmic-level warship possesses the combat capabilities of an E-rank expert, the most intelligent group of people from the Tianyuan star cluster civilization. 4 of whom are now under Gu Qijue's command. They can, of course, fully utilize their abilities and wisdom to upgrade and iterate the Emperor flagship. Gu Qijue hadn't expected such a good thing to happen. Good, just give me a reasonable list of the energy and materials you need. Upon hearing this, Tian Li and the others nodded. Judging by the resources controlled by the Infinite Empire, upgrading the Emperor flagship from F-rank to E-rank should not be a major problem. While Gu Qijue prepared to head to the Bifeng battlefield again, Tian Li and the others were busy helping Gu Qijue upgrade and modify his starship. In his normal state, he is only a God-rank warrior. Being able to possess an E-rank cosmic-level warship is truly remarkable. While Tian Li and the others were upgrading and modifying his starship, he also convened the Infinite Empire's Supreme Council meeting. After the 3 trials conclude, the Desolate Star System will dispatch a total of 100 million combat troops to enter the Bifeng battlefield. 100 million combat troops is still the minimum requirement. Furthermore, the Desolate Star System must ensure that 100 million combat troops are maintained on the Bifeng battlefield. If these individuals die in battle, it must be reported and supplemented immediately. Therefore, for this trip to the Bifeng battlefield, Gu Qijue planned to send the leaders of more conglomerates and forces. Shenhuang Continent, Central Continent Block. This is the Infinite Empire's current imperial capital, and the Infinite Empire's Supreme Council Hall is also located here. The Infinite Empire's Supreme Council Hall is a massive floating base. All god rank, all demigods, and all imperial rank experts of the Infinite Empire attended this Supreme Council meeting. As time passed, and the Infinite Empire's resources were further integrated and utilized, the number of demigods and imperial rank warriors in the Infinite Empire increased significantly. During the Galaxy era, the suffix expert followed demigod and imperial rank. Now the era has changed, and demigod and imperial rank can only be followed by the suffix warrior. Not only them, but even god rank and super god rank can only be followed by the suffix warrior. Only by becoming a cosmic-level warrior can one be called an expert. After everyone had arrived, Gu Qijue informed them of the news he had recently received. Everyone, the Desolate Star System has 2 more trial opportunities, which can also be called inspection opportunities. After these 2 inspections conclude, we will dispatch 100 million combat troops to enter the Bifeng battlefield. Everyone should already have some understanding of the situation at the Bifeng battlefield, but I can clearly tell everyone that on the Bifeng battlefield, even a god-rank warrior has no power to protect themselves. Therefore, during the next 2 inspection opportunities, we must try our best to find a path to survival for the Desolate Star System's 100 million combat troops. Otherwise, once the combat troops sent to the front line die in battle, we will need to replenish them. Transporting combat troops from the Desolate Star System to the Bifeng battlefield is very costly. Moreover, the loss of these warriors is a loss for the Desolate Star System, and the cost must be shared among everyone here. Gu Qijue's voice echoed throughout the Infinite Empire's Supreme Council Hall. Everyone understood the seriousness of the matter, but no one had a good solution. They could only turn their gaze toward Gu Qijue. At this moment, if anyone might have a solution, that person could only be Gu Qijue. But everyone was overthinking it. Gu Qijue's understanding of the Bifeng battlefield was also very limited, and he hadn't come up with a countermeasure either. He had no countermeasure. But Yan Shan did. Yan Shan is one of the Infinite Empire's god rank experts, originally an expert from the West Continent block of the Shenhuang Continent. At this point, Yan Shan proposed a very vicious strategy. If we select 100 million combat troops from among the experts, then the Infinite Empire's god rank, demigod, imperial rank, quasi-imperial rank, and even some saint rank members will need to participate. Based on the information we have gathered from various sources and the intelligence provided by Your Excellency, the head of state, saint rank, quasi-imperial rank, and imperial rank members will easily die upon entering the Bifeng battlefield. Even demigods will be in an extremely perilous state. Since that is the case, we should simply dispatch saint rank and half-saint warriors. Even if tens of billions of saint rank and half-saint members die, the Infinite Empire can still bear the loss. Yan Shan's strategy was extremely vicious, but it was definitely effective. Since sending experts results in death, and sending weaker individuals also results in death, we might as well use the lives of the weak to save the lives of the strong. Everyone present could clearly calculate the value of this trade-off. However, what to do was not up to others, only Gu Qijue's word counted. Therefore, everyone's gaze fell upon Gu Qijue. Facing their gazes, Gu Qijue quickly made his decision. This proposal is unacceptable. After rejecting Yan Shan's proposal, he also gave his reason for the refusal. The Bifeng battlefield is a massive crisis, but also a massive opportunity. Anyone who goes to the Bifeng battlefield, provided they don't die, can grow rapidly. If the Infinite Empire wants to have more experts, this is a shortcut. Furthermore, if a large number of saint rank warriors die in battle, the Infinite Empire will fall into a state of discontinuity. Therefore, the 100 million combat troops must prioritize experts. Hearing this, everyone's expressions were grim, but their grim expressions were useless, as they could not defy the arrangements of the Vermilion Bird Empire. If they disregarded the Vermilion Bird Empire's summons, immediate catastrophe would befall them, and no one would escape. At this moment, Zai Ling, one of the vice heads of state of the Infinite Empire, also spoke. Your Excellency, the head of state, what is your arrangement for this trip to the Bifeng battlefield? Gu Qijue's subsequent words surprised everyone. My arrangement is to dispatch half of the god rank members and half of the demigods to the Bifeng battlefield. Those who return alive will generally have considerable gains. Those who cannot adapt to the battlefield environment will only go and never return. This half of the god rank members and half of the demigods will be decided by drawing lots. If there are no objections, the drawing of lots can begin now. As Gu Qijue's voice faded, a virtual screen appeared before all the god rank warriors and all the demigod warriors. The crowd hesitated briefly but chose to obey the command. Soon, 15 god rank members and over 200 demigod warriors were selected. In a few days, they will all follow Gu Qijue to the Bifeng battlefield. Of the Infinite Empire's 3 vice heads of state, 2 will remain behind, and 1 will accompany Gu Qijue. The person accompanying Gu Qijue was none other than Zai Ling. Among the demigods, Gu Yong's really did not want to go, but his luck was poor, and he drew the lot to go. There was nothing he could do, he could only go back and pack. Preparing to depart with Gu Qijue. 220, official soldier, mission to wipe out the remaining enemy forces. Gu Qijue and the people of the desolate star system were truly not very lucky. As soon as they connected with the star cluster level civilization, the Vermilion Bird Empire, they encountered a fierce war between star cluster level civilizations. But there was nothing they could do, since they encountered it. They could only be drawn into this great war. The first combat force from the desolate star system to go to the Bifeng battlefield largely fought independently. This time, they undoubtedly made significant progress. The establishment of the Infinite Empire allowed everyone in the desolate star system to advance and retreat together. Under the leadership of Gu Qijue, the head of the Infinite Empire, half of the god rank warriors, demigod warriors, and some of the top imperial rank warriors of the Infinite Empire. Once again, they headed to the Bifeng battlefield. Originally, Gu Qijue did not intend to bring imperial rank warriors, as the Bifeng battlefield was too dangerous. Imperial rank warriors going there would, more often than not, become cannon fodder. However, in the end, Gu Qijue still gathered 500 people to enter the Bifeng battlefield together. He decided to personally lead and command, taking the people of the Infinite Empire to find their Tao of survival on the Bifeng battlefield. Vermilion Bird Star Cluster, Frontline Base. This place not only had one base, but frontline bases were built on tens of thousands of planets. Buzz, as the ultra-long-distance space transmission device started working again, a group of people walked down from the teleportation platform. They were the people of the Infinite Empire, and Gu Qijue was walking at the very front. According to Gu Qijue's experience at this time, an F-rank or E-rank universe-level powerhouse should come to guide them. But when he brought everyone here, only a god-rank staff member came. After this person arrived, he said to Gu Qijue, "Your Excellency, due to the urgency of the frontline battle, the Vermilion Bird Empire has cancelled the instructor system. All of you need to register as official warriors of the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster and receive new communicators. Subsequent combat missions will be transmitted via the communicators." Hearing this, Gu Qijue felt somewhat helpless towards the Vermilion Bird Empire. However, an arm cannot twist a thigh. If the Infinite Empire was still in its developmental stage, it still had to follow the orders of the Vermilion Bird Empire. The group quickly followed the staff members' guidance to a comprehensive hall. Zai Ling followed beside Gu Qijue and asked, "What do we do now?" She knew that Gu Qijue planned to lead everyone to act and fight together. Unexpectedly, a change occurred this time. They clearly could not act as freely as last time. Of course, this did not stump Gu Qijue. He quickly said, "Let's first observe the situation, then make flexible adjustments." His meaning was clear: there are policies from above and countermeasures from below, no matter what. The 500 people of the Infinite Empire still had to act together. Otherwise, if these 500 people were truly scattered across the Bifeng battlefield, in the end, perhaps only Gu Qijue and Zai Ling would make it back alive. After entering the comprehensive hall, everyone had to do 3 things. The first thing was to test their true strength. The second thing was to register as official warriors of the Vermilion Bird Empire. The third thing was to receive a communicator. Gu Qijue, led by a staff member in the comprehensive hall, entered a narrow passage. This narrow passage had various energy detection instruments. After he walked through this passage, his strength in his normal state could be clearly detected. The test result was that the current Gu Qijue in his first state was a God rank 6 tier warrior. As for Zai Ling, she was God rank 9th tier. And the test results for the rest of the people were also very accurate. Unless they also had Gu Qijue's transformation ability, it would be impossible to hide their strength. Of course, Gu Qijue was not the only one with transformation abilities, but he was the only one whose strength increased several times, or even more than 10 times, upon entering the next stage of his form. At least so far. In the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster, besides him, no one else possessed such capabilities. After the strength test, it was time to register as an official warrior of the Vermilion Bird Empire. An identity crystal card was quickly made and handed to Gu Qijue by the staff member in the comprehensive hall. Finally, they received a brand new communicator. This time, the communicator was not a bulky wristband, but a silver ring. This silver ring was both a spatial storage device and a communicator. After binding it with the identity crystal card, one could control this device with their mind. Gu Qijue's thoughts stirred, and a virtual screen popped up. On this virtual screen, he could see a large amount of public information about the Bifeng battlefield. After Zai Ling and the others received their communicators, they did the same thing as Gu Qijue. Then everyone saw the top headline of the Bifeng battlefield, a missing person notice for Tian Li. Although the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster and the Qianqi Star Cluster still suspected that Tian Li was in the others' hands. However, both sides did not rule out the possibility that Tian Li escaped on her own or was intercepted by others. As long as concrete and useful clues could be provided, a reward of 1 trillion Chester Universe coins from the Star Cluster level civilization, the Vermilion Bird Empire, could be obtained. 1 trillion Chester Universe coins is equivalent to 10 billion infinite crystal stones. The total value of all resources in the desolate star system now might only add up to a few tens of billions of infinite crystal stones. Such a huge bounty made Gu Qijue decide that after returning, he would strengthen the protection of Tian Li, Tian Hao, Xuanye, and Ling Mi. Providing information alone offered a reward of 1 trillion Chester Universe coins. If these 4 were handed over, what kind of immense wealth would that be? However, Gu Qijue had no intention of handing over Tian Li and the other 3 to the Vermilion Bird Empire. Instead, he had the idea of replacing the Star Cluster level civilization, the Vermilion Bird Empire. After all of them received their communicators, Gu Qijue also thoroughly understood the current combat mode. Currently, on the Bifeng battlefield, forces are divided into direct combat units and cannon fodder combat units. Direct combat units will be commanded by commanders of the Vermilion Bird Empire and act according to their orders. As for the cannon fodder combat units, they operate on a mission-based system. They need to complete a certain number of missions within a specified time. Completing them earns merit, failing to complete them results in punishment from the supervisory squad. Gu Qijue looked through the mission list and made a decision. He ordered all combat personnel of the Infinite Empire, take on the mission to engage -19 resource star and clear out the remaining enemies. This mop-up mission had a personnel limit but no strength limit. The personnel limit was 100,000. The Infinite Empire's combat personnel, with only 500 people this time, could of course all participate in this mission. Everyone obeyed Gu Qijue's order and accepted this mission. Subsequently, they boarded the frontline base's starship and headed to -19 resource star to clear out the remaining enemies. The so-called remaining enemies were those who had been routed and scattered by the direct combat units. 221, a single, earth-shattering spear thrust. It will make him famous throughout resource star. These enemies no longer possess strong combat power, however they hide everywhere, and it would be a waste of time and uneconomical for the direct elite forces to deal with them. But these remaining enemies cannot be ignored, otherwise, if they cause any trouble, the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster would suffer. Therefore, the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster chose the most cost-effective method to deal with these people. This most cost-effective method was to assign the task of clearing out the remaining enemies to the cannon fodder combat units, letting them peck at each other. Under Gu Qijue's leadership, 500 people from the Infinite Empire officially set foot on -19 resource star. This place was ravaged, filled with broken walls and ruined cities. Starship wrecks and mecha wrecks were also everywhere in this place. Bang! As Gu Qijue and his group arrived, a muffled sound suddenly rang out. Then, a bullet from a god-slaying sniper rifle, trailing a blue tail flame, instantly killed a god-rank warrior not far away. The god-slaying sniper rifle is a high-energy weapon capable of sniping and killing most god-rank warriors. The one killed by the Qianqi Star Cluster's sniper was not from the Infinite Empire. However, the Infinite Empire's members standing there were like living targets, constantly at risk of being picked off one by snipers hidden in the dark. Normally, that would be true, but this sniper was undoubtedly unlucky. Encountering Gu Qijue, a blood spear condensed from demonic power instantly appeared in Gu Qijue's hand. Boom! Gu Qijue suddenly flung the blood spear and it directly pierced through space, performing spatial traversal. Only when it reached the sniper did the blood spear shatter space and reappear. When the blood spear reappeared, the Qianqi Star Cluster sniper hadn't even realized what had happened before his head exploded into a mist of blood. Gu Qijue's move created a powerful deterrent effect on the other snipers of the Qianqi Star Cluster. Everyone dared not provoke this living king of hell and retreated one after another. They only held god-slaying sniper rifles, while Gu Qijue used a sniper spear that could shatter the void realm. Such a ruthless person, of course, should not be provoked. How many Chester Universe coins do they earn in a month? It's not worth risking their lives. After Gu Qijue casually struck and eliminated a petty villain, he immediately became the focal point of -19 resource star. After all, many galaxy-level civilization combat units had been ambushed by cold shots after arriving here. A young man with fiery red hair quickly approached Gu Qijue and introduced himself. "We are a combat unit from the Rising Sun Galaxy civilization. Can we act together with you?" Gu Qijue's answer was very simple. Just 2 words: "You cannot." After speaking, he prepared to leave with Zai Ling and the others. However, his previous move was too astonishing and was coincidentally captured by a drone. Now, the entire -19 resource star was wildly circulating that short few-second video. After the Rising Sun Galaxy civilization, more and more galaxy-level civilizations, as well as quasi-galaxy-level civilizations, rushed over. Everyone came with only one goal: to act together with Gu Qijue. Or more bluntly, to cling to a powerful figure. There was a reason these guys were classified as cannon fodder combat units. Their combat power was indeed insufficient. A dignified god-rank warrior was easily dealt with by a single god-slaying sniper rifle bullet. If it were a god-rank warrior from the Infinite Empire, within the same realm, over 60% would definitely survive. Gu Qijue had no interest in these hangers-on around him, although the 500 combat personnel of the Infinite Empire were carefully selected. There were still quite a few hangers-on. These people are important talents for the future development and construction of the Infinite Empire, and of course, they can be nurtured. As for combat personnel from other star systems, they could only pray for themselves. However, when facing the Dragon Maiden Galaxy civilization, Gu Qijue hesitated slightly. The Dragon Maiden Galaxy civilization, as the name suggests, is a dragon clan civilization, and one dominated by dragon maidens. The combat personnel of the Dragon Maiden Galaxy are all beautiful and charming dragon maidens. If this were a beauty pageant, The Dragon Maiden Galaxy civilization would have already far surpassed other star systems. However, this was a battlefield of life and death, and even if Gu Qijue was confident, he wouldn't bring so many vases with him. After being rejected by Gu Qijue, the other star systems left with a hint of life chi. After being rejected, the Dragon Maiden Galaxy civilization surprisingly chose to follow the Infinite Empire's group, neither too close nor too far. Zai Ling glanced at them and said somewhat helplessly, "Should we warn them?" Gu Qijue looked back and then said, "No need." The Infinite Empire's members soon understood why there was no need. Boom! Gu Qijue instantly entered his second form, Tor with a raised hand, directly shattering the Void Realm. Then, his vast and boundless demonic power instantly swept up everyone present, performing a spatial traversal. As Gu Qijue completed his half-dragon transformation, the Dragon Maidens of the Dragon Maiden Galaxy civilization let out screams. "My heavens, he's a dragon! Excellent, he's one of our kind. I want to bear his dragon babies. Quickly find a way to catch up." The combat units of the Dragon Maiden Galaxy civilization initially only wanted to cling to a powerful figure. Now they had higher aspirations, they wanted to sleep with Gu Qijue. Fortunately, Gu Qijue possessed extraordinary skills, directly shattering the Void Realm and leaving. Gu Qijue's luck was excellent this time. The place they reappeared was an abandoned base located halfway up a mountain. This place offered an open view, and the abandoned base could still be used after some repairs. They could clearly use this place as a stronghold during their mission on Amanus 19 Resource Star. Gu Qijue didn't hesitate, immediately dispatching a large number of war machines from the Infinite Engines warehouse. Some war machines were on alert around the perimeter. Some were exploring the surroundings. The last part of the war machines began to repair the abandoned base. Having arrived at such a good place, Gu Qijue quickly issued orders to the Infinite Empire's members. First, familiarize yourselves with the nearby terrain, don't go too far. Additionally, all God-rank warriors come to me for a meeting. After the command was issued, the demigods and imperial rank warriors began to familiarize themselves with the surrounding terrain. As for the God-rank warriors, they all gathered around Gu Qijue for a meeting. This time, the Infinite Empire had scraped together, including Zai Ling, a total of only 15 God-rank warriors. God rank is extremely formidable in planetary-level civilizations and even stellar-level civilizations. In some planetary-level civilizations, some beings with a simple trick of pies falling from the sky would dare to claim to be the son of the creator god. However, God-rank warriors are not as effective on a star cluster-level battlefield. The fellow who died right after arriving on Amanus 19 Resource Star is a bloody example. 222. Cut through the enemy lines and head to the resource point. The 15 God-rank warriors of the Infinite Empire, including Zai Ling, were all a bit nervous. No one knew how many of them would return alive this time. While everyone was feeling anxious, Gu Qijue began to deploy. For the next period, 3 God-rank warriors will form a group for training. The training area is a 10 million li radius centered on this abandoned base. The other demigods and imperial rank individuals. You will make reasonable selections and assignments. This head of state will also be active nearby. If you encounter danger, you can call for my help. Are there any questions about this arrangement? Everyone shook their heads upon hearing this. No problem. Of course, they had no problem. Fortunately, everyone was now following Gu Qijue. Previously, Bei Gongjai and the others chose to resist Gu Qijue to the end, and as a result, they all died without a complete corpse. After arranging everyone, they just had to wait for this abandoned base to be repaired. With the Infinite Group's war machine repair capabilities, this was, of course, not a difficult task. With this stronghold for rest and recovery, everyone began their training as per Gu Qijue's instructions. Gu Qijue also released the 4 energy bodies from the Emperor Starship's life pod. The Emperor Starship had already been upgraded and modified before he set off. The current Emperor Starship was already an E-rank cosmic-level starship. The 4 energy bodies he released were the Tianyuan F4, who were the energy body clones of the 4 Tian Li individuals. After releasing these 4 guys, Gu Qijue looked at Tian Li's energy body clone and asked, "Is there any valuable resource in this place?" As soon as Tian Li's energy body clone appeared, he took out equipment from his spatial storage device and began surveying. After Gu Qijue asked, he immediately nodded. For a star cluster-level civilization, this planet is not very valuable, but for the desolate star system, this planet is an incredibly rich resource planet. The most resource-rich planet in the desolate star system is far inferior compared to this one. I have already marked the detected resources around here. Next, just let the war machines collect them. Gu Qijue nodded after hearing this and said, "You just need to control the war machines to complete this task." Tian Li's energy body clone nodded, "No problem." Gu Qijue was not interested in ordinary resources, he was only interested in treasures. After some thought, he decided to filter out the powerful enemies in the vicinity and then move freely on this planet. "I'll give you control of the Emperor starship and the war machines on it. You continue to survey the surrounding resources, especially top-tier resources. After I filter out the surrounding enemies, I will go collect the resources that the war machines cannot collect." As he spoke, Gu Qijue handed a spatial storage device to Ling Mi. Ling Mi and the others nodded. Gu Qijue's arrangement was fine. After giving instructions to Ling Mi and the others, he directly entered his third combat state, unleashing the terrifying strength of a super god rank peak. The enemies within a 10 million li radius were quickly swept away by him. In his super god rank state, these remnants of the Qianqi star cluster were no match for him at all. After eliminating all the powerful individuals among these enemies, Gu Qijue went to rendezvous with Ling Mi and the others. The remaining enemies were for Zai Ling and the others to practice on. He would provide some protection to the Infinite Empire's fledglings, but he would not guarantee everyone's safety 100%. This was a battlefield. To survive, one could only continuously grow stronger. The Emperor starship had not transformed into a massive cosmic-level warship yet, but remained in its spaceship form. This was the benefit of Ling Mi's joining. Most technological weapons could be used more flexibly with the enhancement of spatial technology. However, Gu Qijue did not enter the starship, which had already gone into stealth mode, but instead flew at a low altitude while maintaining contact with the 4 Tian Li individuals. Other galaxy-level civilizations came to the Bifeng battlefield to participate in star cluster-level battles to burn money and sacrifice lives. The Infinite Empire was different. Under Gu Qijue's leadership, the Infinite Empire was here to make money. Gu Qijue had now returned to his regular form. His initial impressive performance was known not only to the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster allies, but also to the Qianqi Star Cluster allies. Although the Qianqi Star Cluster people were somewhat surprised why he was acting alone. After discovering him, the Qianqi Star Cluster allies did not treat him politely. On Gu Qijue's way to a resource point, 5 god-rank warriors from the Qianqi Star Cluster completely surrounded him. "Who are you?" After so easily surrounding Gu Qijue, the 5 were very excited, and they had completely confirmed that Gu Qijue was indeed reckless, daring to act alone on such a dangerous battlefield. Gu Qijue casually said, "I am Gu Qijue, the head of the Infinite Empire from the Desolate Star System." "Who are you 5? Among the 5, the leader said, "We are all god-rank warriors from the Tree God Galaxy. If you have no last words, we will send you on your way." Gu Qijue smiled. "It should be said, if you 5 have no last words, I will send you 5 on your way." When Mutation and the other 4 heard this, they seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. The 5 wasted no hesitation and suddenly launched an attack. "Kill him!" As Mutation's voice fell, a green energy mass enveloped Gu Qijue. The actions of the remaining 4 were no slower than Mutation's. They were all warriors around God rank 5, 5 against 1. There was no reason they couldn't defeat Gu Qijue, but their luck was bad. Gu Qijue could never be judged by common sense, so their fate was already sealed, death. To deal with these 5 insignificant opponents, Gu Qijue didn't even need to enter his second combat form. Swish! A blood spear instantly appeared in his hand. Crack! He gripped the blood spear and thrust it fiercely. Mutation's blasted energy light mass, along with Mutation himself, was utterly destroyed by Gu Qijue's spear. As fellow god ranks, Mutation couldn't even last a single breath in front of Gu Qijue before being easily killed. The 5 who had just asked Gu Qijue for his last words instantly became 1 dead and 4 fleeing. However, with such a huge disparity in strength, these few could only obediently leave behind their divine rank crystal cores. Escape was impossible. Swish, 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 swish. Gu Qijue performed steadily, unleashing 4 more spear thrusts, causing the remaining 4 individuals to also die on the spot. 5 divine rank crystal cores were easily acquired. Unfortunately, it was no longer the era of galaxy civilizations. Divine rank beings were no longer so valuable, not just god ranks. Even super god rank beings were worthless. Cosmic level beings were the common pursuit of all galaxy civilizations. After killing the 5, Gu Qijue headed to a rare resource point selected by Tian Li and the others, preparing to seize rare resources. 223. Secret infiltration. The gathering team's base. The communicators used by a star cluster-level civilization possess extremely high technological content. The events that occurred on the Amanus 19 resource star quickly spread to the surrounding planets. Gu Qijue's powerful strike gradually became known to the people on the surrounding resource stars, making him a hot topic. Logically, Gu Qijue could have taken advantage of this wave of popularity to start intergalactic live streaming sales. However, the Vermilion Bird star cluster and the Qianqi star cluster are currently engaged in a star cluster-level war. If he dared to act recklessly, he would be sanctioned by the Vermilion Bird Empire. Gu Qijue naturally had no intention of acting recklessly, and he was completely unconcerned about his unexpected rise to fame. He currently just wants to quietly make a fortune and avoid unnecessary attention. Fortunately, the location he is in is relatively dangerous. Therefore, there are no people from other galaxy-level civilizations nearby coming to interfere with his actions. The resources on this resource star are extremely abundant, but Gu Qijue is not interested in ordinary resources. Therefore, the resources he is looking for on this resource star are super god rank, or even F rank cosmic level materials. The rare material currently discovered by Tian Li and the other 3 on this planet is called Casting Gold Stone. Casting Gold Stone is the name used by the Vermilion Bird star cluster, according to the Tianyuan star cluster civilization. This is Z-9 alloy material. What this rare resource is called is not important, its rank is what matters. The rank of Casting Gold Stone is quite interesting, because the raw ore of this material is a top-tier super god rank material. However, the high-purity alloy refined from the raw ore, azure gold material, can reach the F-rank cosmic level. Gu Qijue cautiously approached the coordinates provided by Tian Li. Sure enough, he saw a large number of enemies nearby. Gu Qijue glanced around and immediately said, "There are too many enemies here, we'll have to fight our way in." Although the starship piloted by Tian Li and the others was not visible, it remained invisible in the air, following Gu Qijue. After he spoke, Tian Li said, "Don't rush yet. Wait until they have finished collecting all the resources in this area, and then we will step in and intercept them. However, it would be best if we could infiltrate this resource collection base and see if we can obtain any internal data." Gu Qijue pondered for a moment and said, "I'll give it a try." After speaking, he began observing the resource collection base. This place housed a large number of Qianqi star cluster combat troops. Although the Qianqi star cluster combat troops on this resource star had already been routed and scattered, some of these scattered soldiers still quickly gathered together to form new combat units. Organized and disciplined combat units like these possess strong fighting capabilities. On the Amanus 19 resource star, all these combat units are tough opponents. After observing for a while, Gu Qijue decided to infiltrate secretly. This resource collection base was enormous, because the area had previously been razed by missiles from the Vermilion Bird star cluster. The various facilities at this resource collection base were also severely damaged. Under these circumstances, he had many opportunities to infiltrate the resource collection base. Once he had a plan, he quickly took action. The first place he infiltrated was a warehouse. Upon arriving, he discovered a large quantity of resources and numerous damaged pieces of equipment. Using his communicator, he attempted to connect to a damaged piece of equipment. He was pleasantly surprised to find that this piece of equipment was actually still operational. Not only that, but this equipment had been left behind by a commander of the Qianqi star cluster. After Gu Qijue connected to the device, the Qianqi star cluster's troop deployment on the Amanus 19 resource star, as well as the resource conditions they had surveyed, became clear at a glance. All the warriors who had already died were marked with gray icons, while the warriors who had not died were marked with green icons. Gu Qijue secretly rejoiced that Tian Li had suggested he infiltrate and investigate. If he had attacked directly, he would likely have suffered a loss. This resource collection base was guarded by 7 or 8 super god rank warriors. That wasn't all. The crucial point was that there were actually 2 big fish nearby. Not far from the resource collection base, there were 2 F-rank cosmic warriors. If something went wrong here, those 2 could quickly come over to provide support. Facing F-rank cosmic warriors, Gu Qijue would only be able to flee. In his blood dragon god state, he could contend with ordinary F-rank cosmic warriors, but this time there were 2 opponents. If he couldn't end the fight quickly, he would inevitably attract even more enemies to this location. If a large number of F-rank experts gathered here, he would be in trouble. Gu Qijue immediately copied all the data from the device and transmitted it to Tianli and the others. As for the raw casting gold stone in the warehouse, Gu Qijue didn't stand on ceremony and accepted it all. The raw casting gold stone piled up in the warehouse was usually of better quality. Other raw casting gold stone of inferior quality would be quickly transported away after collection and submitted to the authorities. The stones left behind to fill the warehouse were naturally exempt from submission, meant to be divided among the Qianqi Star Cluster personnel themselves. Unfortunately, they wouldn't get to divide them because Gu Qijue would take all of this raw casting gold stone. After emptying one warehouse, Gu Qijue proceeded to the adjacent one. The resource collection team left here by the Qianqi Star Cluster seemed very confident in this base. Gu Qijue observed that there wasn't a single guard here, since the other party hadn't posted any guards. He didn't need to be polite. He could take away all the raw casting gold stone and other rare materials in this place. In the most ideal scenario, he might even be able to come and go without a sound, completely avoiding a direct confrontation with these Qianqi Star Cluster resource collection teams. Gu Qijue's judgment was completely correct, because there truly were no guards in this area. The ones coming here to store resources were all robots. Clang-a-lang. A sound rang out as a Qianqi Star Cluster resource collection robot poured a box of carefully selected top-tier resources into an empty warehouse. The reason for doing this was to avoid being discovered by their superiors. If their superiors found the resources were incorrect and retrieved their personal recorders for inspection. If they were seen putting good resources into their personal spatial storage devices at that time, their lives would be over. But if the selected top-tier resources were stored in a warehouse, there would be no problem. If they were discovered, they could argue they were storing resources in the warehouse, not keeping them in their own pockets. Even if their superiors found out, they couldn't do anything about it. If nothing went wrong during the entire process, they could naturally divide the hidden resources when they left. Under normal circumstances, their strategy was sound, but they were unlucky, as the valuable resources selected by these 7 or 8 super god-rank warriors were all accepted by Gu Qijue. Moreover, it was highly likely that he would be able to retreat without anyone knowing. 224 successfully intercepted the resource, escaped the resource warehouse. Gu Qijue was actually prepared to retreat quickly if he was discovered. However, the soldiers of the Qianqi Star Cluster's resource collection team were too confident in their warehouse. Gu Qijue had already emptied half of this warehouse, yet these people still showed no reaction. Since they weren't worried, Gu Qijue naturally continued to help them clear out the warehouse. Soon, he discovered that this place not only had gold casting stone ore, but also many materials he didn't recognize. He didn't have time now to use his communicator to check what these things were one by one. He indiscriminately put all these materials into his spatial storage device. After a moment, Gu Qijue found some more special items. All the items here were stored in black gold boxes. He didn't know if they were advanced resources or some kind of dangerous goods. Gu Qijue looked for a moment and decided to take all these things with him, then let Tianli and others appraise them later. His movements were very fast. In a short while, 7 or 8/10 of the items in this warehouse had been moved by him. He originally didn't want to touch the remaining supplies, but after pondering for a moment, he still decided to take everything before leaving. Doing so would certainly alert the soldiers in this place, but it didn't matter. It would be quite dangerous for him to stay here and fight the Qianqi Star Cluster's resource collection team. But if he snatched the resources and left immediately, he would always maintain the initiative. If few pursuers came, he could eliminate them before leaving. If many pursuers came, he would simply retreat. Currently, most intelligent life forms on Amanus 19 Resource Star belong to the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster. These pursuers would definitely not dare to chase too far, otherwise their death would be certain. This resource collection team from the Qianqi Star Cluster was unlucky to encounter a formidable expert like Gu Qijue. Things unfolded exactly as Gu Qijue had imagined. After he emptied all the supplies in this warehouse, he immediately alerted the guards outside the warehouse. Who's there? Outside the warehouse. A god-rank warrior looked into the warehouse with great anger. Swish! His answer was a spear thrust out by Gu Qijue. This god-rank warrior didn't even get a clear look at Gu Qijue's appearance before being easily killed by him. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! There are enemies in the warehouse area. After this guard was killed, all combat units at this resource collection point were alerted. Large numbers of demigods, god ranks, and super god rank warriors rapidly approached from all directions. Everyone rushed with all their might. because the resources stored in the warehouse were only temporarily there. If they could sneak them through without being noticed by their superiors, they would put the resources from the warehouse into their own pockets. Now those resources were indeed in pockets, but they were in Gu Qijue's pocket, which was certainly unacceptable. Although these people reacted very quickly, they were still slower than Gu Qijue. Except for a very small number of god-rank warriors and demigods who chased after Gu Qijue. The others, upon arriving at the warehouse, could only look on in shock. Then utter fury, they had worked for nearly half a year in this place to fill the warehouse. According to the evacuation plan, they would be able to leave Amanus 19 Resource Star in another half a month. Who would have thought that, at this critical juncture, the supplies they had stored in the warehouse would be intercepted? This was beyond endurance. Many super god-rank warriors chased in the direction Gu Qijue had left. This was not only due to responsibility, but also because of their money bags. If Gu Qijue had stolen the public's money, that would have been one thing, but the key was that Gu Qijue had stolen their money. On Amanus 19 Resource Star, a chase battle began. Initially, 12 god-rank warriors and many demigod warriors chased Gu Qijue. Now, only 5 god ranks were still chasing Gu Qijue, maintaining a certain distance, neither too far nor too close. The reason for this was that Gu Qijue had just displayed his divine might, eliminating all the others. Gu Qijue could enter the blood dragon god state, continuously shattering space to escape these pursuers. But he wasn't going to do that. Although the Desolate Star System had already connected with the Vermilion Bird Empire, god-rank combat power was no longer as effective. However, the Infinite Empire, as a rising galaxy-level civilization, still highly valued god-rank combat power. After these god-rank warriors from the Qianqi Star Cluster were killed, they could provide god-rank cores for Gu Qijue. God-rank cores were merely precious resources to others. To Gu Qijue, however, they could be transformed into valuable combat power through the Infinite Engine. So he traveled through the Void Realm at a moderate pace, and when more pursuers gathered behind him, he would turn back and harvest a wave. At first, the Qianqi Star Cluster's combat units didn't understand this. But when Gu Qijue turned around again, they realized something was wrong. On the Qianqi Star Cluster's side, there were now 15 god-rank warriors chasing Gu Qijue. Seeing Gu Qijue turn around, a peak god-rank warrior roared without hesitation. Retreat! His roar echoed through the universe. Those who didn't know might have thought he was about to lead the warriors around him in a fierce charge. His roar was loud, and he ran very fast. Unlike the others, he had personally witnessed Gu Qijue displaying his divine might, cutting down the others beside him like grass. Although the other warriors of the Qianqi Star Cluster heard the retreat order, not all of them knew how powerful Gu Qijue was. The key was that Gu Qijue was also a god-rank warrior just like them, and he didn't have 3 heads and 6 arms. No matter how they looked at it, so many of them shouldn't be no match for Gu Qijue. Whoosh! A sharp whoosh of air was the first to arrive. This sound was caused by Gu Qijue's blood spear breaking the sound barrier. By the time everyone clearly saw the blood spear, Gu Qijue's blood spear had already impaled a god-rank triple warrior directly in the Void Realm. Whoosh! As demonic power surged around Gu Qijue, another blood spear flew out of his hand. A sharp whistling sound quickly pierced the air, and another god rank was killed before he could even make any effective reaction. After 2 companions died consecutively, even the most foolish among the remaining understood. Gu Qijue, despite not having 3 heads and 6 arms, was a living king of hell. They immediately scattered and fled without hesitation. Everyone was certain that Gu Qijue was 100% a super god-rank warrior, pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. But it must be said, Gu Qijue had a great destiny with the many female dragons of the Dragoness Galaxy. Even when he was wreaking havoc in this place, he managed to encounter a dragoness from the Dragoness Galaxy. 225, he became famous overnight, he became a legendary star, inside an abandoned base. Numerous beautiful dragon maidens poked their heads out. The dragon maidens' appearances were indistinguishable from human women. Of course, they could also transform into their dragon bodies or their half-dragon forms. Gu Qijue was enjoying the killing spree and naturally had no interest in studying the various forms of the dragon maidens. While he had no interest in studying the dragon maidens, the many beautiful dragon maidens were very interested in studying him. Hiss, we found him, the guy from the Desolate Star System. We've already checked the data, he is Gu Qijue, Your Excellency. The head of state of the Infinite Empire? What kind of power is the Infinite Empire? Everyone chattered excitedly, staring at Gu Qijue in the distance while discussing matters related to him. However, Gu Qijue was too low-key, and the outside world's understanding of him was very limited. If he could, he would prefer to remain low-key indefinitely. After all, he had now established a partnership with 4 heavyweights, Tian Li, Tian Hao, Ling Mi, and Xuenya. If a star cluster-level civilization discovered these 4 figures on his territory, he would definitely be in deep trouble. Gu Qijue ignored the group from the Dragon Maiden galaxy not far away. He immediately unleashed his full firepower, crushing all the pursuers from the Qianqi star cluster. 9 god-rank crystal cores were collected by him almost effortlessly. Having finished all this, he continued to leave in another direction. Seeing this scene, the numerous dragon maidens immediately chased after him without a word. They had decided to throw themselves at him and cling to his leg for support. Such excellent dragon clan genes, if not combined with them to give birth to an outstanding dragon baby, would simply be a terrible waste. Gu Qijue had originally planned to kite the Qianqi star cluster's pursuers while fishing for more, but he never expected his plan to be disrupted by something so ridiculous. Now, the ones chasing him were no longer the combat forces of the Qianqi star cluster, but a large number of beautiful and charming dragon maidens. It wasn't that he suddenly became averse to women, even if he were made of iron. He couldn't handle so many dragon maidens. Moreover, the main purpose of coming to Amanus 19 Resource Star this time was to gather resources, develop his power, and increase his strength. Propagating offspring was not an option at all. Having no choice, Gu Qijue could only instantly enter his 3rd combat form. Roar! A dragon roar shook the heavens and earth, piercing the clouds and splitting the rocks. Following this dragon roar, the space in front of Gu Qijue completely shattered, and in the next moment he traversed the void realm, shaking off all the dragon maidens. If only 1 or 2 beautiful dragon maidens had come, he might have played hard to get and then sacrificed his small self to achieve the great self. After all, what these dragon maidens said wasn't wrong. He possessed extremely excellent dragon clan genes. But with so many dragon maidens coming all at once, he naturally couldn't handle it. You must know that there are no fields ruined by plowing, only bulls exhausted to death. Although Gu Qijue successfully shook off the numerous dragon maidens after unleashing his fully dragonized black dragon state, it only made the dragon maidens who witnessed his full dragonization even more frantic. For a time, various topics about him began circulating across the channels of the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster. Some dragon maidens claimed he was a super god-rank expert disguised as a god-rank expert. Other dragon maidens claimed he was an F-rank expert who deliberately concealed his strength. Ever since he arrived at Amanus 19 Resource Star, his performance had been outstanding. After gaining the favor of so many dragon maidens this time, he was instantly pushed into the spotlight again. When Gu Qijue returned to their base halfway up the mountain, he found Xiling and the others looking at him with strange expressions. Gu Qijue couldn't help but ask doubtfully, "What's wrong?" Xiling looked him up and down a few times, then popped up the virtual window on her communicator and said, "Look, they are all looking for you." The they Xiling referred to were, of course, the many beautiful dragon maidens. These dragon maidens were causing Gu Qijue significant trouble. If he were the head of state of the Vermilion Bird Empire, a D-rank universe-level expert, or even a C-rank cosmic-level expert, then he could certainly accept everyone who came, regardless of how large the harem became, as long as their looks, figure, and strength were decent. He would gladly take them all. But the problem was that he was currently just the head of state of a newly emerging galaxy-level civilization. What he needed most right now was to quietly make a fortune. The actions of the numerous dragon maidens directly turned him into a prominent figure among god-rank warriors. If he hadn't disabled the friend request function, who knows how many people would be trying to add him as a contact. Gu Yangs also walked over with a strange expression and asked, "Your Excellency, the head of state, what did you do to them?" Dao Huang, Bei Qingshan, and the others didn't speak, but every single one of them had their ears pricked up. Everyone was extremely curious about what Gu Qijue had done to make so many dragon maidens utterly obsessed with him. Gu Qijue said helplessly, "I merely had a few skirmishes with the warriors of the Qianqi star cluster." Hearing Gu Qijue say this, the others naturally still held doubts in their hearts. But soon they understood exactly how Gu Qijue had fought the god-rank warriors of the Qianqi star cluster. Because the footage of Gu Qijue unleashing his divine might and fighting the god-rank warriors of the Qianqi star cluster had actually been recorded by this group of incredible dragon maidens. It would have been fine if they had just recorded the footage. But the key point was that they edited it and posted it to the Vermilion Bird Star Clusters channel. As a result, everyone could see the scene of Gu Qijue sweeping away all opposition and utterly defeating the Qianqi Star Cluster's god-rank warriors in just a few minutes. Xiling and the others all knew Gu Qijue was extremely strong, but only now did they realize just how terrifyingly powerful the current Gu Qijue had become. These videos quickly spread wider and wider. Gu Qijue had originally intended to work low-key and quietly make a fortune. Unexpectedly, things went against his wishes, and he suddenly became one of the most popular star figures among god-rank warriors. This left Gu Qijue extremely helpless, but since things had reached this point, he could do nothing about it. However, he still did not allow the outside attention to affect his original plan. Returning to the base halfway up the mountain, he found a relatively safe location and released the energy body clones of Tianli and the other three. He brought them out mainly to help appraise how many good items he had acquired earlier. When Gu Qijue took out those black gold boxes, Tianli and the others didn't pay them much mind at first. But moments later, Tianli stared at the box, then found a special ocean emblem on its side. Upon seeing this emblem, Tianli couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "Look, technology weapons from the Sea Emperor Star Cluster Civilization." Gu Qijue didn't know what the Sea Emperor Star Cluster Civilization represented. Tian Hao, Ling Mi, and Xuanya were all collectively stunned. The Sea Emperor Star Cluster is one of the mysterious civilizations whose technological prowess is closest to the Super Star Cluster level civilization. 226. The Sea God's Treasure and the Sea God's Key. If Sea Emperor and Sea King were used to describe people, they certainly wouldn't be good terms. However, the Sea Emperor Star Cluster civilization was not simple. The upper and lower limits of a star cluster civilization are vast. Take the now destroyed Tianyuan star cluster as an example. For star clusters with very weak forces, they could destroy them with overwhelming force. The Sea Emperor Star Cluster civilization had a very mysterious origin, was extremely powerful, and was destroyed in a very inexplicable manner. It was a very powerful star cluster civilization, with its comprehensive strength infinitely close to a super star cluster civilization. Gu Qijue initially didn't know what the Sea Emperor Star Cluster civilization was, but now he did. His gaze, when looking at the relics of the Sea Emperor Star Cluster, also showed a look of keen interest. Gu Qijue then asked Tianli, "What's inside these black gold chests?" Tianli shook his head. "I don't know." This answer, of course, surprised Gu Qijue. Tianli's expertise was very high, and he believed Tianli wasn't lying. Gu Qijue continued, "How do I open these black gold chests?" Tianli's answer once again surprised Gu Qijue. Tianli smiled helplessly and said, "We probably can't open these black gold chests right now." Gu Qijue naturally didn't understand, but this time he didn't need to ask. As Tianli explained the reason, the relics of the Sea Emperor Star Cluster are not numerous, but these specially sealed items are all treasures without exception. To open the black gold chests, you need to find the Sea Emperor's key. That is a special key made by the Sea Emperor Star Cluster civilization. When the Sea Emperor's key approaches these black gold chests, the chest closest to the key will open. After he finished speaking, Gu Qijue immediately understood the crux of the problem. These black gold chests were indeed treasures, but to obtain the treasures left by the Sea Emperor Star Cluster civilization, one needed the Sea Emperor's key. So Gu Qijue asked, "Where is the Sea Emperor's key?" This time, Tianli didn't say he didn't know, but instead said, "Any place with Sea Emperor Star Cluster ruins could potentially have a Sea Emperor's key. As for the Sea Emperor's keys on the market, for a long time they have been priceless and unavailable." In short, Gu Qijue had indeed stumbled upon a treasure this time. However, this kind of treasure could only be utilized with a Sea Emperor's key. Gu Qijue certainly didn't want to go looking for any Sea Emperor's key. So he directly asked, "Can these black gold chests be opened by brute force?" Tianli shook his head. "No, these black gold chests have self-destruct devices. Once forcibly opened, a terrifying explosion will occur. Not only can't they be opened by brute force, but they also cannot be violently cracked using other technical means. Otherwise, the black gold chests will explode. Some forces, after obtaining these black gold chests, indeed use them as weapons." Tianli's words left Gu Qijue somewhat speechless. Obtaining such treasures made him feel quite helpless. Since these black gold chests absolutely required a Sea Emperor's key to open, there was no other way. Even if he wasn't keen on searching for the Sea Emperor's key, he would have to add the task of finding it to his plan list. Gu Qijue didn't dwell on the black gold chests. He looked at other resources and asked, Are there any particularly special resources among these other materials? He had only asked casually. Yet unexpectedly, Tian Li nodded. Then Tian Li picked up a gray stone that Gu Qijue didn't recognize and said, "This is material Z-9, also called gray source ore. In the Tianyuan star cluster civilization's material numbering system, materials starting with Z are all extremely valuable and widely used materials. The smaller the number that follows, the more precious the material. This series of materials, from Z-12 all the way to material Z-1, increases in value. This gray source ore generally doesn't appear in small quantities. Once it appears, it indicates that there is a large amount of gray source ore on this resource planet. Your Excellency, the head of state, can find a way to obtain this resource planet. If all the gray source ore on this resource planet can be mined, the Infinite Empire will not lack high-end materials for the super god rank." Tian Li's words were very appealing to Gu Qijue. He also trusted Tian Li's judgment. Thus, this seemingly insignificant resource planet must be obtained somehow. Actually, there's no need to think of any special method, because the simplest way to acquire a resource planet is through military merit exchange. To exchange for a resource planet using merit points, at least 1 billion merit points are required. If a resource planet is of very high value, then the merit points needed to exchange for it would, of course, be very substantial. Gu Qijue checked and found that exchanging for this resource planet only required 1 billion merit points. The people of the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster clearly hadn't discovered the immense value of this resource planet yet, but the problem was, even 1 billion merit points was an extremely vast number for Gu Qijue. He had been busy, fighting everywhere and killing foes on the Bifeng battlefield, yet the merit points he currently possessed were only a few million. Of course, this was because he had only come twice in total. If he had stayed on the Bifeng battlefield all along, his merit points would certainly be much more than this. Apart from exchanging with merit points, one could also complete some high-difficulty missions to directly receive a resource planet as a reward. Gu Qijue clearly wasn't planning to stay on the Bifeng battlefield indefinitely to earn merit points. Spending so much time and effort to earn merit points, only to exchange for a resource planet in the end, was clearly not cost-effective. Even if this resource planet possessed a large amount of gray source ore, it was still not cost-effective. So Gu Qijue's strategy was to directly obtain a resource planet by completing a special mission. There were many such missions, but any one of them was difficult to complete. Even though these missions were not easy to complete, Gu Qijue still chose a mission to find someone. This mission was to search for a commander named Lorraine in a Star War ruins on the Bifeng battlefield. Commander Luo Lin was a commander from the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster. A long time ago, she led the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster's combat forces in a terrifying battle against the Qianqi Star Cluster's combat forces, with a participating scale of 400 billion combat units. After that great battle, Commander Luo Lin disappeared, and the place where that Star War erupted was also called the Star War Ruins. There were numerous starship wrecks and many planets shattered into pieces. Even so, that area still had a large number of combat forces from both sides continuously engaged in battle. Therefore, finding Commander Luo Lin was an extremely difficult task. If someone could find Commander Luo Lin, they would receive a resource planet as a reward. 227, Star Wars Ruins, Commander Lorraine. A resource star is also a planet, however. The value of a resource star is much higher than that of an ordinary planet. Most planets are not very valuable. Only those with abundant high-value resources can be called resource stars. Although finding Commander Lorraine was an extremely difficult mission, but in order to obtain the Amanus 19 resource star, Gu Qijue still decided to check out the Star War ruins. He quickly returned from the Amanus 19 resource star to the frontline base. He then used the frontline base's ultra-long-distance space teleportation device to directly teleport near the Star War ruins. As for the members of the Infinite Empire, they would only be safe if they remained on the Amanus 19 resource star. If he brought them near the Star War ruins, they could easily become cannon fodder. When he arrived near the Star War ruins, he saw that it was a vast, boundless, and endless region. This place was filled with countless meteors of all sizes, as well as an endless number of starship wrecks. Finding someone in such a place should be an extremely difficult task. Regardless of the difficulty, Gu Qijue still joined the search for Commander Lorraine. Boom, boom, boom. In some surrounding areas, the war was still ongoing, the cluster light cannons piercing through the heavens. continuously roared at this moment. Gu Qijue also saw that there were many god-rank warriors like him who wanted to achieve greatness overnight, if nothing unexpected happened. These people came here with only one goal, to find Commander Lorraine. Although everyone was in a competitive relationship, a group of peak god-rank warriors still extended an invitation to Gu Qijue. Friend, would you like to act together? Gu Qijue shook his head. No. He wasn't going to cooperate with anyone. He wanted to monopolize the Aminus 19 resource star. After being rejected by Gu Qijue, these few people did not leave but continued to approach Gu Qijue. Gu Qijue was stunned at first, but he quickly understood. Not everyone who came here just wanted to find Commander Lorraine. There were also some guys who came here to earn some extra money. Finding Commander Lorraine was an extremely difficult task, but in this place, dealing with some god-rank warriors was clearly very easy. God-rank warriors often had some wealth. If they could pull off this kind of risk-free, high-profit business a few times, these people would clearly not have come in vain. However, the risks involved in this line of work were undoubtedly very high. Once they hit a snag, they might very well lose their lives. This time, this group of people undoubtedly hit a snag. The 5 of them, however, did not have such awareness. After surrounding Gu Qijue, they revealed greedy expressions. The leader spoke excitedly. Friend, pay for a lesson. Remember, the Bifeng battlefield is very dangerous. Don't act alone. Duan Yang said smugly, as if he had already got Gu Qijue in his grasp, but after he finished speaking, Gu Qijue remained very calm. Gu Qijue's calm and composed demeanor, of course, displeased Duan Yang. He immediately spoke with an extremely cold tone. Friend, hand over your spatial storage device. If you're unwilling to hand it over yourself, then we'll have to be rude. As his voice fell, the remaining 4 all unleashed their powerful god-rank aura. All 5 of them were peak god rank. It was also because of their powerful combat strength as peak god rank that they had enough confidence to believe that Gu Qijue could only be manipulated by them. In Duan Yang's opinion, Gu Qijue now had only 2 choices left. One choice was to escape, and the other was to follow his instructions and obediently hand over the spatial storage device. But Duan Yang was wrong. Not only was he wrong, but everyone around him was wrong. Because at this moment, Gu Qijue suddenly smiled and said, if the 5 of you are willing to leave your spatial storage devices behind, I can give you a quick death. What Gu Qijue said was to give these people a quick death, not to let them off. Not to mention that it was impossible for them to give their spatial storage devices to Gu Qijue, since Gu Qijue still wanted to kill them after they gave him their spatial storage devices. They naturally had no choice but to fight. Duan Yang was not a very patient person, and Gu Qijue's previous words had already worn out all his patience. Therefore, at this moment, Duan Yang attacked without warning. Boom! His fierce and unrivaled punch slammed directly towards Gu Qijue's head. He wanted to turn Gu Qijue, who had just been boasting, into a headless corpse in the next moment. Many people in the past had wanted to do what he wanted to do, but now all those people were dead. The moment Duan Yang attacked, the other people around him also attacked. They were not good people, they were all villains who lived by the sword. They came to the Star War ruins not to search for Commander Lorraine at all. These people came here with only one purpose, to extort other god-rank warriors. Duan Yang might have done many wrong things in his life, but this time, it was undoubtedly the most serious mistake. When he suddenly attacked Gu Qijue, Gu Qijue's figure instantly disappeared. Before he could wonder what had happened, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. Duan Yang immediately looked down and saw a blood spear, in a flash of lightning, pierce through his back, annihilating all his vitality. In the last moments of his life, Duan Yang had already recognized this blood spear. He already knew who this person in front of him was. The remaining 4 people did not recognize Gu Qijue in his first form at first. After all, everyone's impression of him was basically his half-dragon's second form. In his half-dragon's second form, he rampaged, killing in all directions. In a very short time, he had eliminated a large number of god ranks. At this moment, these people finally realized. It turned out that Gu Qijue didn't need to enter his second form. His first form also possessed terrifying combat power. Run! After Duan Yang's death, his 4 accomplices' first thought was not to avenge him. His accomplices were thinking, how many of them would survive in the end? Gu Qijue could answer that question. None of them would survive. The blood spear once again pierced through the air, and a god-rank warrior desperately trying to escape was effortlessly impaled by the blood spear. After 2 consecutive deaths, the remaining 3 immediately understood that they couldn't simply run away like this. If they wanted to live, they had to fight while retreating. Otherwise, all of them would be defeated one by Gu Qijue. The idea of these three was at least half right. If they abandoned their companions and fled alone, they would indeed be defeated one by Gu Qijue, but their combined efforts were also useless. Crack! A sound of space shattering was heard, and Gu Qijue's figure appeared in front of these three. Launching an attack. 228, Destructive Ray, Indiscriminate Attack. Seeing Gu Qijue shatter the Void Realm and pursue them, the three immediately turned fierce. Although Gu Qijue's reputation was far-reaching, the three of them were not made of mud either. Even if they died at Gu Qijue's hands, they would definitely make Gu Qijue pay a price. A shower of blood exploded as Gu Qijue thrust his blood spear forward, easily taking down another god-rank warrior. After dealing with this person, Gu Qijue's mind stirred, and two bolts of lightning suddenly struck down. Boom, rumble, sizzle. The remaining two god-rank warriors were first disoriented by the falling lightning, before they could even recover. Gu Qijue's soul-reaping blood spear pierced through both of them. These 5 people initially wanted to kill Gu Qijue and seize his wealth. However, they were not strong enough and had bad luck. Not only did they fail to obtain Gu Qijue's spatial storage device, but they also gave their own spatial storage devices to Gu Qijue. Not only that, but they also provided Gu Qijue with 5 very useful God-rank crystal cores. Although Gu Qijue was currently more interested in super God-rank crystal cores and F-rank crystal cores, he would not disdain God-rank crystal cores. After all, one must walk step by step, and even if the Infinite Empire had infinite potential, it still needed to develop and progress gradually. After Gu Qijue killed these 5 people, he continued his journey. He now had very few clues, only one in total. That was, Commander Luo Lin's life signal was in the Star War ruins. This clue proved 2 things. First, Commander Luo Lin was in this place, and second, she was still alive, but no one knew exactly where she was, in the war-torn Star War ruins. Gu Qijue continued his search. It must be said that there were many people like Duan Yang. Although Gu Qijue did not encounter them, he saw many recently deceased bodies. There were no Qianqi star cluster enemies in this place. The bodies here could only be left by infighting among the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster people. Gu Qijue traveled all the way, constantly seeing the bodies left by numerous god-rank warriors. He soon discovered that some of these people were killed for their wealth. Others were killed due to disputes over scattered resources on the battlefield. Not far from Gu Qijue, 2 god-rank experts died together while fighting over a damaged F-rank energy ore vein. This damaged F-rank energy ore vein was almost 5 or 6 train car lengths long. Since these 2 had already died together, Gu Qijue naturally accepted this damaged energy ore vein with a smile. Stop! The moment Gu Qijue placed the energy ore vein into his spatial storage device, many god-rank warriors suddenly arrived from all directions. Gu Qijue turned back, glanced at everyone, and asked, "Is something wrong?" Among the group behind him, one person suddenly spoke, pointing at a dead body and saying, "This energy ore vein was discovered first by our companion. If I were you, I would take out what doesn't belong to me." His meaning was very clear. The damaged energy ore vein that Gu Qijue had just put away did not belong to him. Gu Qijue shook his head casually. Everything in the Star War ruins is ownerless. Whoever grabs it, it belongs to them. Since this damaged F-rank energy ore vein is already in my hands, there's no reason to take it out. As Gu Qijue finished speaking, the other party immediately laughed. "Your Excellency, it seems you are not a smart person." Gu Qijue also smiled. "So, you think you are a smart person?" Huang Lei nodded very seriously. "There are 11 peak god ranks here. Does your Excellency really think you can snatch something from the hands of us 11? An F-rank energy ore vein, even if damaged, was extremely valuable. Such a large, damaged F-rank energy ore vein had a total value that definitely exceeded the entire net worth of most super god-rank warriors. Huang Lei and the others, of course, could not simply give up such a precious item, especially since Gu Qijue was alone. However, Huang Lei's thought did not last long. Buzz! A blood spear immediately appeared in Gu Qijue's hand. He himself instantly entered his half-dragon transformed second combat form from his first combat form. A cascade of ashen white long hair fell casually behind him, and a black dragon mystic robe instantly appeared on his body. Behind him, a long dragon tail trailed, and from his back, 2 black twin dragons grew, their aura shaking heaven and earth. The sudden change made Huang Lei's expression instantly stiffen. His smile immediately turned to terror. His earlier mockery and playfulness vanished in an instant. Huang Lei no longer cared about anything else. instantly leading over 10 god-rank warriors to kneel down and kowtow desperately. "Your Excellency, spare our lives. Your Excellency, please spare our lives. We were blind and failed to recognize your greatness. Please. In your magnanimity, overlook our offense and spare our lives." Huang Lei kowtowed like pounding garlic, large beads of sweat constantly rolling down his forehead. At this moment, he was utterly terrified. Huang Lei never dreamed that the one he had provoked this time was none other than Gu Qijue, the god of slaughter. Besides Huang Lei's group, many others had also arrived. They had all been watching the show before, and they had fewer people than Huang Lei. In their minds, this damaged F-rank energy or vein would definitely end up with Huang Lei's group. However, they were wrong. And Huang Lei's group was also wrong. Because Huang Lei's group was facing a tough opponent, Gu Qijue was not going to let Huang Lei's group off, even though these people had only verbally provoked him. But these guys were clearly not good people. However, just as Gu Qijue was about to launch a sudden attack, his expression suddenly changed drastically. The next moment, he no longer hesitated, instantly tearing space and fleeing. It was unknown whether it was a Vermilion Bird Star Cluster E-rank cosmic level starship or a Qianqi Star Cluster E-rank cosmic level starship. For some unknown reason, a shot was suddenly fired in this direction. Boom! The colorful annihilation ray instantly enveloped this entire area. Everything in this place turned into dust in the blink of an eye, whether it was Huang Lei and the others, or the numerous meteorites here, as well as starship wreckage and other substances, all of them instantly turned into dust and scattered in space. Of course, this time no one was targeting Gu Qijue. It was entirely because the Qianqi Star Cluster's main battle starship misfired. To be precise, it wasn't a misfire, but rather, when the Qianqi Star Cluster's starship fired, the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster's starship warped away. This led to collateral damage, like a fire at the city gate harming the fish in the pond. Apart from Gu Qijue, who immediately sensed something was wrong and decisively fled, all other god-rank warriors of the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster who appeared in this area were killed. 229. Gather intelligence. The treasure for advancing to F rank. Crack! A crisp sound echoed, and a crack appeared in the void realm of the universe. Gu Qijue, who had just broken through the void to evade starship attacks, emerged from the rift. He now knew why Commander Lorraine hadn't been found yet. The Star War Ruins area might be more dangerous than most people imagined. If he hadn't been alert enough just now, he would have suffered the same fate as the others. After looking around, Gu Qijue secretly thought, "I need to be extra careful when operating in this area from now on, or I might encounter another sudden situation like that just now." His judgment was basically correct. It was indeed easy to encounter sudden situations in this place. As Gu Qijue continued to travel through the Star War ruins, he encountered warriors from the Qianqi Star Cluster. They were a 6-person squad, and upon seeing Gu Qijue, none of them hesitated, launching an attack directly. Boom! A roar suddenly erupted, and an energy light sphere slammed towards Gu Qijue. Whoosh! Gu Qijue's figure flickered, easily dodging the energy light sphere, but several remaining energy light spheres arrived in an instant, almost in the blink of an eye. These energy light spheres were already before Gu Qijue. The 6 people from the Qianqi Star Cluster saw this scene and rejoiced. "He's dead." Rumble! Several energy light spheres suddenly exploded where Gu Qijue had just stood, with flames soaring into the sky. However, they were destined to be disappointed. Their extremely dense attack failed to keep Gu Qijue there. As their attack struck, Gu Qijue had already appeared behind the 6 of them. As the 6 were thinking that Gu Qijue had been killed by them, one of them suddenly let out an extremely mournful scream. The remaining 5 immediately looked over and saw that one of their companions had been pierced through the heart by Gu Qijue's blood spear. Bang! Devastating power suddenly spread from the blood spear. This divine rank warrior from the Qianqi Star Cluster died on the spot, leaving only a divine rank crystal core quietly suspended in midair. War is cruel and terrifying. Peace is of course ideal. However, all peace in this world has never come from hope. Hoping for peace can only be hope, not true peace. Only by ending war with war can war truly cease. The various forces on the Shenhuang continent fought for tens of thousands of years. Now, after Gu Qijue completely conquered the Shenhuang continent, these forces have not had another war, which is clear proof. At this moment, encountering warriors from the Qianqi Star Cluster, Gu Qijue would not hold back, and naturally, the people from the Qianqi Star Cluster would not either. They even went for the kill the moment they saw Gu Qijue. It's just a pity that they didn't encounter ordinary god-rank warriors from the Vermilion Bird star cluster, but rather Gu Qijue, the god of slaughter. Whoosh! The blood spear lunged out again, its speed exceeding the comprehension of ordinary god-rank warriors. With a flash of blood-red light, another god-rank warrior from the Qianqi star cluster was instantly killed by Gu Qijue. Dealing with these ordinary god-rank warriors, Gu Qijue could kill them on the spot with a mere flick of his hand. In a short while, all 6 of them were completely annihilated. Their god-rank crystal cores and their spatial storage devices were taken by Gu Qijue. After eliminating this squad from the Qianqi star cluster, Gu Qijue continued his journey. His main purpose for coming to the Star War ruins this time was to find someone not to kill. Ordinary planets are worthless, but resource stars are frighteningly expensive. While this might anger real estate tycoons, this is how it is in the interstellar age. Gu Qijue had to find a way to locate the missing Commander Lorraine before he could claim the ominous 19 resource star. However, searching for someone like finding a needle in a haystack is obviously very difficult. After continuously annihilating 5 or 6 tactical squads from the Qianqi star cluster, Gu Qijue began to ponder where Commander Lorraine might be at this moment. With a thought, a map of the Star War ruins popped up from his communicator. On the virtual screen, he could clearly see the entire Star War ruins. After a while, he realized something. The area he had explored in the Star War ruins for so long was less than 1,000th of the total, given the danger of the Star War ruins. If he wanted to conduct a carpet search, 1 life probably wouldn't be enough. If he couldn't do a carpet search and still wanted to find someone, intelligence became very important. On the Vermilion Bird star cluster's communication channel, there were people selling various pieces of intelligence. Gu Qijue pondered for a moment, then decided to buy all the intelligence, regardless of its authenticity. After purchasing all this intelligence, he said to the communicator's AI, "Analyze and organize." After he spoke, the communicator's AI immediately did as he instructed. In a short while, all the intelligence was analyzed and organized by the AI. Gu Qijue then knew which areas had been explored, but Commander Lorraine had not been found. Moreover, these areas had been explored by more than just one person. This meant that Gu Qijue essentially didn't need to explore these areas, although it was not impossible that these people might have overlooked something. However, the exploration priority of these areas could clearly be lowered. After carefully reviewing the organized data, Gu Qijue's targets became 3 areas. The first place he went to was Sector North 64. Each of these 3 places was more dangerous than the last, although many areas of the Star War ruins had been explored. These 3 areas, however, let alone being explored, no one had even approached their vicinity. This was not because others didn't want to approach, but because they dared not easily venture into danger. What others feared, Gu Qijue was not so afraid of. He didn't hesitate at all and went straight there. This place was dangerous because it contained a resource called Purple Origin Crystal. Purple Origin Crystal is an advanced cultivation resource that can help super God-rank warriors more easily break through to F-rank cosmic level. On star cluster level battlefields, God-rank and super God-rank warriors are not the mainstays. Only cosmic level warriors of F-rank and above can play a greater role on the battlefield. Any place with Purple Origin Crystal is often a scene of intense fighting. Ordinary God-rank warriors approaching such a battlefield often wouldn't even know how they died. Gu Qijue, however, had fewer concerns. He came to this place to find someone, not to compete for Purple Origin Crystal. But sometimes, things just don't go as planned. As soon as he arrived, a transparent crystal box filled with Purple Origin Crystal dropped in front of him. Purple Origin Crystal is a special resource. When freshly harvested, it cannot be stored in a spatial storage device. It must wait until it has completely cooled before it can be placed in a spatial storage device. 230. Planetary debris, target detected, before the Purple Origin Crystal completely cooled. This advanced material could only be stored in a specially made crystal storage box. What fell from the sky and landed in front of Gu Qijue was precisely one of these specially made crystal storage boxes. Gu Qijue quickly picked up the crystal storage box and then fled. He had no choice but to run this time, because behind him there was 1 E-rank and 5 F-rank universe-level experts chasing him. After he decisively fled, their pursuit of him did not stop. Even if Gu Qijue continuously shattered space to escape, these people could still lock onto the crystal storage box. After running for a while, Gu Qijue had a flash of inspiration. He began to try if he could put the crystal storage box into the infinite engine storage space. Ordinary spatial storage devices could not accommodate this crystal storage box. However, the infinite engine's storage space was clearly not the same concept as ordinary spatial storage devices. After a simple attempt, he once again confirmed that the infinite engine's technological content was higher than that of a star cluster-level civilization. What star cluster-level civilization spatial storage devices could not do, the infinite engine's storage space could, if it weren't for the fact that the main purpose of coming out this time was to rescue Commander Lorraine. Gu Qijue would already be thinking of making a fortune. All the purple origin crystals he obtained could be stored in the infinite engine's storage space. This way, no matter how many purple origin crystals he obtained, no one else would know. This plan was feasible, but he didn't do it. Instead, he continued to search for people inside the remains of a planet in the Star War ruins. This place was an incredibly vast underground architectural complex. Commander Lorraine and her assistant, Eve, were struggling to find a way out. Lorraine weakly collapsed to the ground, asking Eve in a small voice, "Eve, how are things looking?" Her injuries were very severe, and Eve had no means of treatment. Lorraine was only alive now because of her tough life. After Lorraine asked, Eve spoke with some despair. "Your Excellency, Commander, we still haven't found a way out. However, the number of mechanical beetles in this place is relatively small. So far, no mechanical beetles have appeared." The news Eve reported was really not good news. This was a huge labyrinth, and the labyrinth contained a large number of mechanical beetles. If Lorraine hadn't been injured, these mechanical beetles would, of course, be nothing. But now she was severely injured, and Eve had always been a non-combatant, with very weak fighting power. Just as Lorraine was feeling extremely helpless, Eve asked her, "Your Excellency, Commander, will someone really come to rescue us?" Lorraine nodded with certainty. "They definitely will." She could only comfort Eve like this because if there were a rescue team, they should have arrived long ago. Since the rescue team hadn't come, it could only mean two things. First, they might have been abandoned. Second, this place was too dangerous, and even rescue personnel could not easily approach. Lorraine could only pray that they were experiencing the second situation. Her and Eve's current condition was very poor. Without rescue, they simply couldn't leave this place. While Commander Lorraine and the little beauty Eve were waiting for rescue, Su Fan, as a rescue worker, was also earnestly searching for Commander Lorraine. However, the technological equipment on Commander Lorraine and her companion had been damaged in the electromagnetic storm attack during their previous battle. At this moment, apart from knowing that Commander Lorraine was still alive, the outside world knew nothing else about the situation. But it seemed that hard work pays off. Gu Qijue wandered in this area for a while and discovered some underground passages. His technological equipment had not been damaged. In this place, he naturally didn't have to worry about getting lost or similar things. Not long after Gu Qijue entered the underground passage, he discovered that this place seemed to have given birth to some civilization that built its cities underground. Whoosh! As soon as he appeared in this place, a blinding purple laser beam suddenly shot towards him. The moment the laser appeared, Gu Qijue's mental energy also saw what it was. This was a mechanical beetle. It was not an ordinary intelligent machine, but a mechanical life form. Boom! Gu Qijue chose to ignore the mechanical beetle's attack. His demonic power formed a powerful force field around him, easily neutralizing the mechanical beetle's attack. The attacks of other mechanical beetles in the vicinity were either neutralized by Gu Qijue or directly shattered by him. After he approached the mechanical beetles, these mechanical beetles were also easily shattered by him. Compared to the non-combatant Eve, his combat power was explosive. Thus, Gu Qijue began to continue searching for Commander Lorraine in the underground city. He didn't notice that after going deeper for a certain distance, his technological equipment was also interfered with by a special force field. At this moment, apart from the Infinite Engine, which was a black technology equipment, all other technological devices on him were unusable. Other technological devices were unusable. But Providence rewards the diligent. After walking for an unknown amount of time in the underground city, he found clues. He saw some mechanical mechs that had been taken down by laser swords and laser guns. Gu Qijue was delighted. There are indeed other people here. I just don't know if it's Commander Lorraine. He was already very deep into the underground city. If he still couldn't find Commander Lorraine, he would have to stop and carefully consider his next move. Since he discovered that mechanical beetles had been taken down in this place, he naturally had to follow these traces and continue searching. Lorraine was seriously injured and very weak, and Eve was a non-combatant. This meant that even if the two of them could fight and move, they couldn't go far. After Gu Qijue searched for another half an hour, he heard a timid voice. "Who are you? Hands up, don't come any closer." It was none other than Lorraine's assistant, Eve, who spoke. Although Gu Qijue was not afraid of Eve, he did not approach rashly. Instead, he stated his identity. "I am Gu Qijue, the Alliance leader of the Desolate Star System Alliance in the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster." Eve and Lorraine did not know about the Desolate Star System. There was nothing they could do. A single star cluster contained too many star systems. Except for very famous star systems, they hadn't heard of them, but it didn't matter. Gu Qijue's next sentence dispelled their concerns. "I received a mission to search for Commander Lorraine and specifically came to this area to search for Commander Lorraine. Which of you two is Commander Lorraine?" As he spoke, he took out his identity crystal card. With the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster's identity crystal card, his identity was, of course, completely confirmed. Power surged around Lorraine, and the next moment she returned to her original appearance. This time, Gu Qijue also confirmed that immense fortune had indeed fallen upon him. 231, break through the encirclement. The resource star is almost in our hands. Gu Qijue possessed formidable strength and numerous trump cards, even though he was still a god-rank warrior. Such a person could stir up trouble wherever he went. After confirming their identities, Gu Qijue came to Lorraine's side. Lorraine was severely injured, to the point of being on her last breath. Eve's strength, on the other hand, was relatively weak. Although she was also a god-rank warrior, she was engaged in intellectual work, not combat. Lorraine and Eve initially thought that Gu Qijue, having overcome numerous difficulties to reach them, would be at least a super god-rank warrior, if not an F-rank universe-level expert. Even if he wasn't an F-rank universe-level expert, he should be a super god-rank warrior. But after confirming that Gu Qijue was only a god-rank warrior, Eve and Lorraine were both stunned. Lorraine even felt that this was simply giving her hope, only to plunge her into despair. In short, it was 2 words: torture. Lorraine looked at Gu Qijue uncertainly and asked seriously, "Did you hide your rank, or are you truly god rank?" Gu Qijue did not hide anything and stated bluntly, "I am a god rank warrior." Hearing this, the beautiful Lorraine felt her vision go dark and her heart cried out. It's over. They needed to overcome many obstacles to escape this place. Gu Qijue, with only a god-rank cultivation, simply could not complete such an arduous task. After some deliberation, Lorraine could only say, "You should stay here with us and wait for rescue. Although you can't safely lead us out, if we stay here, the 3 of us can protect ourselves without issue." As a commander, Lorraine was not fond of taking risks, nor did she like them. As time passed, her injuries would become more severe, but she still decided to hold out for reinforcements in this place. Of course, Gu Qijue would not stay here with Commander Luo Lin to await rescue. He intended to monopolize this immense fortune. After Lorraine spoke, Gu Qijue shook his head. He raised his hand and clenched it, and a crystal containing pure blood chi rapidly formed in his palm. Lorraine didn't pay attention at first, but soon, a deep surprise appeared on her beautiful face, because she discovered that the crystal in Gu Qijue's hand had a very strong healing effect. She exclaimed in surprise, "Are you a healing-type warrior?" Gu Qijue shook his head. "No, but this crystal does contain very rich vitality. I'll sell this crystal to your excellency, Lorraine. Please name your price." Lorraine didn't expect Gu Qijue to be a businessman. However, after thinking for a moment, she said, 5 million Chester? She was the young miss of the Bloomfield family and didn't have much concept of money. 5 million Chester was already an astronomical figure for an ordinary god-rank warrior. When Lorraine quoted this price, she didn't even frown. Not only that, but she also said very straightforwardly, "Forget it, 5 million is hard to remember. Let's make it 10 million Chester. Give me 10 such crystals, and I'll give you 100 million Chester after we get out." After she said this, even the wealthy Gu Qijue could only nod. Moreover, he had already decided to become friends with this beautiful young miss who was rich and a bit naive. This time, not only for the mission, he had to escort her out unharmed. More importantly, for future financial prospects, he had to ensure her safety. Gu Qijue, of course, didn't know that his current efforts to earn Lorraine's money were completely superfluous, because one day in the future, Lorraine Bloomfield would become one of his wives. His attempts to earn Lorraine's money would, of course, just be moving money from his left hand to his right. Of course, at this moment, neither Gu Qijue nor Lorraine knew about their future connection. Therefore, Lorraine could only watch in extreme shock as Gu Qijue effortlessly condensed 10 blood chi crystals. These blood chi crystals contained extremely pure blood chi energy. Logically speaking, Gu Qijue should have been severely weakened and needed a period of recovery, but Lorraine and Eve could only stare at Gu Qijue in shock. After condensing these 10 blood chi crystals, Gu Qijue was still as if nothing had happened. Lorraine's heart could only express immense admiration. As an F-rank universe-level expert, she had been impressed by Gu Qijue multiple times in a very short period. However, Lorraine would soon realize that this was just the beginning. Gu Qijue quickly said, "Your Excellency Lorraine, please hurry and recover your injuries. I will escort you out. The battlefield between the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster and the Qianqi Star Cluster in the Star War ruins is shifting in this direction. On my way to find you too. I was almost killed by a destruction ray." Hearing this, Lorraine felt both shocked and anxious. A destruction ray was also a type of planet-destroying cannon, but more powerful than ordinary ones. The place they were hiding in was impervious to ordinary planet-destroying cannons, but if they were hit by a destruction ray, all three of them would be instantly reduced to elementary particles. Lorraine immediately dared not hesitate any longer and quickly seized the time to recover from her injuries. These 10 blood chi crystals could not fully restore her, but they could give her some mobility. After Lorraine recovered, Gu Qijue took her and Eve and left this dangerous place together. As long as he safely escorted Lorraine to the frontline base, he could claim a resource star filled with abundant resources. Gu Qijue held his blood spear, leading the way. Lorraine and Eve followed closely behind, extremely nervous. Eve was a weak fighter, and Lorraine had not yet recovered her combat strength. But it wasn't a big problem. They would soon see how fierce, powerful, and overwhelmingly strong Gu Qijue was in battle. Lorraine and Eve had, after all, been hiding in this place for a long time. They had a certain judgment about every subtle movement here. After the three had walked for some distance, Lorraine spoke. Extremely nervous. "We can't go any further. So much purple mist here indicates that a large number of mechanical beetles are approaching, including super god rank mechanical beetles." As soon as she finished speaking, 2 super god rank mechanical beetles, as if on cue, rushed towards the three of them. In the past, Lorraine and Eve would have turned and run. These mechanical beetles had a weakness. They were not good at long-distance travel. As long as they ran far enough, the mechanical beetles would not continue to pursue them. However, this time, Eve and Lorraine didn't need to run. Before the two could even take a step, Gu Qijue had already, with 2 swish, swish sounds, instantly eliminated the 2 super god rank mechanical beetles. These mechanical beetles had powerful weapons, but their small bodies were very fragile. Launching such a close-range attack on Gu Qijue was simply courting death. Hiss! This scene shocked Lorraine and Eve, causing them to gasp in cold air. The two now understood why Gu Qijue was able to reach this place. He didn't get here by luck, he fought his way through. 232, head of the Braunfeld family. Gu Qijue held the blood spear and continuously led Commander Lorraine and Eve in breaking through the encirclement. He did not pay attention to the surrounding mechanical beetles. What truly made him wary were the various cosmic-level battleships outside. The attack power of these battleships was extremely formidable. If that kind of destruction ray suddenly appeared here, he might not be able to escape. The spatial fluctuations here were extremely intense, making it impossible to tear space and escape using a spatial passage. Otherwise, he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. Fortunately, Gu Qijue's luck was very good. The immense fortune of rescuing Commander Lorraine ought to belong to him. He easily brought Commander Lorraine and Eve to the edge of the Star War ruins. Upon arriving here, his mission was basically complete. However, to avoid any other unexpected complications, Gu Qijue did not call for a starship from the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster. Lorraine saw Gu Qijue preparing to take both of them, shatter the Void Realm directly, and fly all the way back to the frontline battlefield, causing her to speak up in astonishment. "Why aren't you calling for a starship?" Eve also wanted to know the answer to this question. Gu Qijue did not hide anything and said bluntly, "As far as I know, Commander Lorraine encountering danger this time is a very suspicious matter. To prevent some people from being unwilling to see Commander Lorraine return to the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster, it's better if I escort Commander Lorraine directly back to the frontline base. Once we reach the frontline base, even if someone wants to harm Commander Lorraine, they won't have the chance to act." Hearing him say this, Lorraine immediately nodded. Lorraine's gaze towards Gu Qijue held much admiration. It must be said that Gu Qijue's consideration of matters was extremely thorough. The trouble she encountered this time was indeed a rather suspicious incident. The situation Gu Qijue described was entirely possible. in places she didn't know about. There might really be people who didn't want her to return to the Vermilion Bird Empire. Next, Lorraine and Eve began following Gu Qijue on a long interstellar journey. Gu Qijue couldn't let Lorraine and Eve enter the Emperor's starship either, in case they possessed any special means of reconnaissance. Tian Li and the others might be exposed. Gu Qijue's worries were not unfounded. Although the Bloomfield family was one of the top powerful families in the Vermilion Bird Empire, but they also had enemies. And their enemy was the Baiken Zhao family. The Baiken Zhao family is the dominator of the Baiken Galaxy civilization, and also one of the top powerful families in the Vermilion Bird star cluster. Lorraine was the most outstanding clansman of the younger generation of the Bloomfield family. The person who was even more outstanding than Lorraine had already been eliminated by the Zhao family. This was the Zhao family's method for dealing with the Bloomfield family, secretly eliminating their outstanding clansmen, causing the Bloomfield family to gradually decline. Lorraine surviving this time was a great surprise to everyone in the Baiken Zhao family, but they weren't worried about Lorraine returning alive to the Vermilion Bird Empire, because there were members of the Zhao family at every ultra-long-distance spatial teleportation station in the Star War ruins. As long as Lorraine appeared at any spatial teleportation station, she would encounter an accident during the transfer, getting trapped in an unknown subspace to suffer. The Baiken Zhao family had arranged everything, yet they never dreamed that the person who rescued Lorraine would use the most primitive method, taking Lorraine and shattering the Void Realm all the way. Combined with flying was an extremely laborious way to rush back. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. But Gu Qijue not only avoided taking a straight line, but also circled dozens or hundreds of times. Even if the high-ranking officials of the Baiken Zhao family were Zhuge reborn or Liu Jai resurrected, they wouldn't have thought that Gu Qijue would return to the frontline base this way. Even if they had thought of it, it would be useless. The universe is vast and boundless, and who could know which path Gu Qijue took? After Lorraine followed Gu Qijue flying for a while, the young miss suddenly burst into laughter. Gu Qijue smiled slightly and asked, "What's wrong?" Lorraine laughed and said, "Even if someone discovers now that we didn't use the ultra-long-distance spatial teleportation device, they still can't catch me. After all, even we don't know where we will appear next, or what route we will ultimately take to the frontline base." Gu Qijue nodded this time. Lorraine was right. The actual situation was indeed like this. Crack! He shattered the Void Realm once again and began spatial traversing with Lorraine and Eve. Performing spatial traversing in the cosmic Void Realm has a certain randomness. After they began spatial traversing, it was truly hard to say when and where they would appear. However, the Baiken Zhao family still discovered something that puzzled them. That was that Lorraine's life source had disappeared from the Star War ruins. This meant two possibilities. One possibility was that Lorraine had died. The other possibility was that Lorraine had escaped without being discovered by the Baiken Zhao family. If it was the former, then so be it. But if it was the latter, it could only mean that Lorraine had used an incredible method when escaping. She hadn't used the ultra-long-distance spatial teleportation device, but had flown back directly. Although Gu Qijue and Lorraine had been delayed for some time during the journey, but under Gu Qijue's escort, Lorraine and Eve arrived at the frontline base very smoothly. At this location, there were already powerful experts from the Bloomfield family present. An old man of the D-rank cosmic level quickly rushed over upon hearing the news. After asking Lorraine about the situation, the old man came before Gu Qijue and said with extreme gratitude, "Young man, I am very grateful that you saved my granddaughter. I am Kane Bloomfield, and this is my token of gratitude for you," Kane said, handing a card to Gu Qijue. This card was a spatial storage device. Gu Qijue swept it with his mental energy and saw the items inside the card. Inside this card was a savings card from the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster Bank, along with a large number of treasures. Lorraine was clearly very important to the Bloomfield family, otherwise Gu Qijue wouldn't have received so many benefits. Gu Qijue thanked Kane for the gift, saying, "Thank you." Kane smiled and said, "It's what I should do." After speaking, he patted Gu Qijue's shoulder and encouraged him, "Young man, keep up the good work." Gu Qijue nodded slightly. In fact, even without Kane's encouragement, he would lead the Infinite Empire forward rapidly. After Kane stepped aside, Lorraine and Eve came over again to express their gratitude to Gu Qijue. Lorraine also handed a card to Gu Qijue, which contained 100 million Chester, money she had previously used to buy blood chi crystals from Gu Qijue. Lorraine finally said, "Lord Gu Qijue, then we'll see each other next time." Eve also spoke up. Lord Gu Qijue, thank you for saving our lives. I look forward to working together next time. Gu Qijue nodded and then said, Young Miss Lorraine, young Miss Eve. Take care. 233, terraforming the planet, an imperial outpost. After the two parties bid farewell, Gu Qijue entered the comprehensive hall of the frontline base to handle business. He had completed his mission, and after handing it in, he would receive his reward. Gu Qijue's process of handing over the mission was very smooth. The mission to rescue Commander Lorraine earned him the entire Amanus 19 resource star. However, the resources on this resource star still needed to be developed by himself. Even the enemies from the Qianqi star cluster on this resource star needed to be dealt with by himself. These matters would be very difficult for others, but for Gu Qijue, it was not so. He planned to transform the Amanus 19 resource star into an infinite empire outpost on the Bifeng battlefield. After completing all the procedures, he returned to the Amanus 19 resource star and set up a spatial teleportation device there. Next, after the Infinite Empire's combat troops enter the frontline base, they can continue to teleport directly to the Amanus 19 resource star. The news that Gu Qijue successfully rescued Commander Lorraine and obtained a resource star quickly spread. It quickly spread through the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster's communication channels. Most demigods, God rank, and even super God rank warriors and F rank universe level experts learned about this immediately. This matter was too incredible, so it spread very widely. When Gu Qijue arrived at Amanus 19 star, Zai Ling and the others looked at him in disbelief. After a moment of hesitation, Zai Ling couldn't help but ask, Your Excellency, the head of state, is the Amanus 19 resource star now an enclave of the Infinite Empire? Demigod Gu Yong's, Demigod Dao Taihuang, Demigod Bei Qingshan, and many other gods and demigods all turned their gazes to Gu Qijue. As everyone looked on, Gu Qijue said with certainty, That's right, from now on, the Amanus 19 resource star will be the Infinite Empire's outpost on the Bifeng battlefield. I have already set up a spatial teleportation device on the Amanus 19 resource star. The Infinite Empire's combat troops, after teleporting to the frontline base, can directly teleport to the Amanus 19 resource star. After speaking, he looked at Zai Ling and continued, You now return to the Infinite Empire and have all forces and individuals willing to come to the Amanus 19 resource star for development teleport over. Next, the Amanus 19 resource star will have a large number of construction missions and combat missions. Whether completing construction missions or combat missions, this head of state will provide corresponding rewards. Zai Ling immediately nodded and followed Gu Qijue's instructions. After Zai Ling left, Gu Qijue then had the others from different star systems on the Amanus 19 resource star temporarily leave. The Amanus 19 resource star was now his planet. People from other star systems needed to follow his arrangements. In fact, most people had already left. If they continued to stay on Gu Qijue's resource star to mine resources, it would be considered theft and would be subject to the laws of the Vermilion Bird Star Cluster. After arranging these matters, Gu Qijue directly entered the Blood Dragon God's